See you tomorrow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning. Welcome to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. And whether you are listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Very much appreciate your company. Don't forget, if you miss anything on the show, you can go to my YouTube page. Come on, you should all know the name of it by now. I wish you're on about it. The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Yes. And you can hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we are going to be talking about refugees are going to lose their automatic right to settle in Britain for life, and of course being able to bring all their family members in at that point under a tightening of asylum laws being set out by who? Oh, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer. It sounds like the sort of policy Nigel Farage would bring in which case it would be racist and immoral. But Labour are doing it, so it's the right thing to do. Very difficult to keep up these days, isn't it, with what is right and what is racist. But under the current rules, which mean that most who are granted asylum seekers, they're automatically entitled to apply for indefinite leave to remain after 5 years. They're going to end that. Also, in addition, their rights to bring in relatives, they're unlikely to be restored after they were temporarily halted this summer. So I would say that's generally good news. But again, is it too little? Is it too late? We appreciate your thoughts on that. Also going to be talking about Kemi Badenoch. Remember her, the Tory leader? Didn't get a mention this week at Labour conference, but her Tory conference starts in Manchester this weekend. She's going to promise today to scrap Britain's flagship climate change law if the Tories do regain power. It's ahead of the conference that she's vowed to repeal the failed Climate Change Act, which sets legally binding targets to make the UK a net zero carbon emitter by 2050. So that is great news. But again, Is it too little too late? Because again, the Reform Party under Nigel Farage had already pledged to scrap net zero. Meanwhile, the Let's Plunge Us All Back to the Stone Age Secretary, Ed Miliband, has announced that the government is planning to pass a new law that would permanently ban fracking for shale gas in England. This man is a danger to the country and to our livelihoods. He needs to be got out of power. The ringleader of a Rochdale grooming gang that used 2 teenage girls as sex slaves was jailed yesterday for 35 years. The father of 3, Mohammed Zahid, was nicknamed Boss Man. He was sentenced to prison alongside 6 others for a campaign of rape against child victims in the town. Not the first, I'm guessing not the last to be convicted of those crimes. We're also going to be talking about the Metropolitan Police and a BBC investigation which has exposed some really pretty horrific actions and language from far too many officers working in the Metropolitan Police. A number have now been suspended, being investigated and being condemned by the Metropolitan Police Chief, Sir Mark Rowley. But how many more times is this going to happen? Well, we'll talk about all of that, plenty more besides. And joining me for all the chat, I'm delighted to say, is Philip Ingram, MBE, former Senior Military Intelligence Officer. Morning to you.
Good morning. So you're telling me I'm on the Julia Hartley-Brewer channel on YouTube?
Well, I think so. I don't know.
I
don't really understand these things. I don't really understand these things.
It's in the interweb somewhere.
On Tinterweb. I mean, press the button. Do the Google, as my father would say. Hi, Dad. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we're going to talk about. I'm sure you've got your opinions already. That's why you're listening to this show. But in particular, I want to hear from you. And Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, has promised she's going to promise to scrap climate laws that commit the government to net zero targets. I've always said none of this survives, any contact with reality, certainly with the electorate. I want to know your reaction to that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs 1, standard network rate message. But I'd love to hear also your thoughts on Keir Starmer and his plans to tighten asylum laws. Again, is it too little too late? Plenty more coming up on that as well. Philip Ingram, let's start with laws, because that is still the biggest topic in town at the moment. Although actually in terms of cost to our country, the net zero stuff is a bigger cost. But if they're going to announce today that they're going to tighten the asylum laws, they're going to end what's called the golden ticket to settling in the UK. Basically, if you get asylum, you're given 5 years to stay here. At the end of the 5 years, you can then apply to remain here. Then you get basically, you can stay here for your life. You can get benefits forever if you want. You can, and then you can bring your family members in, extend. I never understood. It's never like husband, wife, son and daughter.
It's everyone.
I never understand. I just find this utterly perplexing that people think this is a normal thing. But it's been branded another gimmick and tinkering at the edges. Is that what it is? Is it too little too late? Or is it at least a welcome recognition that this is, frankly, an insane policy we've got?
I think it's a welcome recognition. You could take any of the policies in isolation and say it's too little too late and it's tinkering at the edges. But actually, if you take lots of them together and it all starts to add up, but that's the thing that we're not seeing. If it starts to add up, then it could make a difference. But unless it all comes in one go, you're still just talking about it.
Well, again, these things they've been in power 15 months. No one thought they were going to, what was it? Rishi Sunak was going to stop the votes, didn't do that, and they were going to. Keir Starmer was going to smash the gangs. He hasn't done that. A lot of the argument made by Reform and others, in particular Reform, was you need to stop the pull factors to people coming to this country, which is you get your hotel, you're never going to have to leave, and then you can bring your family. Those are the pull factors. You can work illegally. No one's going to do anything about it. Digital ID cards ain't going to change any of that, by the way, Prime Minister. But that was kind of poo-pooed by Keir Starmer before, and it was all like nobody's going to smash the gangs. I mean, everyone involved in this knows that was never going to work, and it wouldn't stop the pull factors. So now he's giving it, and virtually every policy that Reform has ever announced has been criticised, and Tories has been denounced as basically racist and immoral and wrong by and unkind by the Labour Party and by Keir Starmer in particular. And then they're announcing just a sort of a light version of it, a diet asylum policy version of everything. But their version is the good and the right thing to do, but the other version that would actually do more is immoral. It's difficult to keep up with this.
It's impossible to keep up with this, and this is where it was easy to criticise the Rwanda policy and where it was and all the rest of it. There are real criticisms that are in there, but it was there and it was close to happening. And if it hadn't been for Keir Starmer's backed lawyers, you're pulling people off flights and all the rest of it, that he's now been subject to, if he'd actually backed it...
Don't like it up them, do they?
Yeah, if he'd actually backed it, something might have happened. And then he'd have had a foundation to build on. But what's he done for 12 months? He's got rid of it. He's now trying to reinvent the same wheel again. And I'm surprised that he's coming up with the thing that the wheel needs to be round to make it happen.
Apparently, genuinely, they do need to be. They do need to go back.
But
to basics.
round Tory wheels don't work.
But again, when they do it, it's not racist. When Reform do it, is, and that's the thing. It's just not going to fly. I mean, there's a new poll suggesting, that Labour have gone down and Reform have gone up. But it was a poll done by More in Common. It was a poll done over the weekend, and the first comments about Reform being racist were on Sunday. So I'm not sure that tells us very much about. But I'm absolutely confidently predict we're going to talk about a Reform bounce for about 3 points and Labour going down. Now, most parties are supposed to go up after their conference because basically they're on the telly a lot and people are talking about them. And when it's like the same, the Lib Dems always go up in their polling during an election campaign because there's a statutory requirement for broadcasters to give them a certain amount of airtime, not the same as the other big parties, but they get a certain amount, and they always go up. But the Labour have had, they've had a whole week of being talked about, and basically all they've wanted to talk about is either digital ID cards thrown as a dead cat strategy or slagging off Reform.
Well, this is where both the Lib Dem conference and the Labour Party conference have done nothing but talk about Reform. Yeah. Reform hadn't had to do anything to get all the publicity. Yeah. I'm going to be intrigued to see whether the Tory Party conference focuses on Reform as well, because they're doing all the free advertising for Nigel Farage and his 5 MPs in total.
Yeah, I know, they keep saying, deriding them, and then, well, why are you talking about him?
Exactly?
I mean, he lives rent-free in their heads, he really does. Well, we understand that migrants are flocking to Calais in the hopes of crossing the UK now because the EU is cracking down, so we become more of a place to come. We've also got army chiefs on standby to build camps for migrants because of this new, we're told, Borders Blitz. You've got to love that headline. Look, as an ex-military man yourself, I mean, we're talking about moving these migrants who are in hotels into army barracks and things. Look, there aren't enough of them. There are tens of thousands of these people. There simply aren't enough of these army barracks. But
there's plenty of space in the army barracks, and the mistake that people make is go, right, we have to give them...
We could put all asylum seekers...
No, yeah, easy. Without any problems whatsoever.
We've got like 120,000 backlog.
Without any problems whatsoever.
Really?
Yes, because we don't have to refurbish all the single soldiers' accommodation, that's there. We can put tents on them. They've got big areas. The tents are to United Nations High Commission for Refugees standard. They're a better standard than there is in Calais that they've been living in for a number of years. We can provide ablution blocks so they can shower and wash and all the rest of it. It doesn't have to be brick-built accommodation. We can put heaters in tents. I've lived in tents for 9 months in the middle of a field.
If it's good enough for you.
If it's good enough for me, on operations, trying to protect this country, it's good enough for anyone that wants to come here from asylum. And if they're genuine asylum seekers, they're going to go, this is better than I've had, I'm feeling safe, I'm not going to complain. So forget this brick-built stuff, forget refurbishing it, just put tents up. And the army are very good at building tents.
I mean, yeah, basically, yeah. Yes, George, I tell you what, if Georgina from London was on the line right now, she'd be cheering you away. Great call, yes, says Georgina, what can I say? I mean, it is extraordinary, isn't it? Again, everyone's been kicking and screaming to these sort of policies where, I'm sorry, people like me, you've been calling for this stuff for years. I've been talking about the mass legal and illegal immigration issue since about 2000.
Yeah. But there's another issue that comes out of this. The migrants are flocking to Calais to cross after the EU cracks down. The EU still has to apply exactly the same European Court of Human Rights legislation as we do, and therefore it's our court's interpretation which is getting it wrong, and therefore our government has got the ability to turn around to our lawyers and our judges and say, no, you're to interpret it this way, because that's British law. I'm
not in favour of these judges interpreting things. Read the law. The law's really sodding clear. I just don't...
We live in, a lot of our legal is legal precedence, and precedence is an interpretation.
No, but they're interpreting it. I mean, literally saying black is white. But let's talk about something else, because I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. I'm sure you're agreeing with Philip Ingram on the tent issue. If they're that desperate, they'll be happy to live in the tents until they're processed and sent home. Baroness Mone, Michelle Mone, of the Brass, she's been urged to give up her peerage or have it taken off her, though apparently that would involve an act of Parliament.
There is one already.
over, it's already in existence, over this £122 million PPE scandal. The thing that gets me, I mean, she's sitting in the House of Lords. Whether she's been in and been voting on things, I'm guessing not, probably off on a yacht somewhere. Apparently, she's really, very scared that this is not going to just be, can you pay back £122 million? Again, it's not her firm, it's a firm that she referred to this fast-track VIP route for PPE, COVID pandemic providers of this vital safety equipment and other things. No, basically, can you help with the pandemic? Get in touch. Here's a route Tory MPs, Tory peers were provided with. And she referred this company. Turns out this company, PPE MedPro, was run by her husband. Oh, interestingly, and only set up that day. I mean, this was a money-making exercise. And I can live with people making money out of this. I still think they're bad people. I still think they are just repulsive human beings. But they didn't even just make a profit on selling PPE that could be life-saving in hospitals for NHS staff or care staff. They sold dodgy stuff and just hoped to get away. That wasn't actually what they were actually paying. No question at all. Banks' rights. The court's saying you have to pay back that money with interest. I want a huge fine as well. But there's also a lot of question marks about whether a number of people involved in these sorts of contracts have actually committed crimes and will be heading behind bars. This is going too slowly. I think also what is also going too slowly is getting all the people who took out loans, or people, I've mentioned on the show this week, people who just basically took furlough money while they kept their staff on and got the taxpayer basically to fund them running their businesses. That's stealing, that's fraud. I want an awful lot of people to go to prison. I'm really unhappy at the sort of people who went, oh, there's a pandemic, people are terrified, people's freedoms have been taken away. Oh, I might make some money from this. What is in your soul? What is in your soul? David Cameron was almost as bad. He just left being Prime Minister a few years earlier, and then he's working for some big financial companies on the board, and his first thing, he's got all this access to get to cabinet secretaries and to the Prime Minister and everything. What does he make calls about trying to get a deal for his mates in his company so he can make more money? Rest of us were worried about our kids not going to school, worried about grandparents who live alone, the little old lady in the street and worrying was she going to get her shopping done. We were okay, people were doing the quizzes, and some people were baking too much bread and enjoying themselves too much and not caring about people who were really suffering. But these people gave no hoots at all about people dying, people not getting cancer treatment, kids not getting an education, people losing their basic civil liberties, and they didn't care any about that. What they cared about was making money. I don't want to walk among these people. Yeah,
there are so many people who lack moral fibre, lack any moral compass whatsoever, and that's out there, and that's an unfortunate part of society that works on disinformation and lies. And if you look at everything that's come out, look at every Labour MP and every Labour cabinet minister and what they're tweeting today. They're saying, we have cracked down on Baroness Money. We are getting money back. Actually, the court case started in December 2022 from the Department of Health and Social Care. That was under the Tory government, but the Labour Chancellor has said that she started it and they're doing it. If you're getting these lies from our political leaders, then no wonder there are people who are finding ways of lying to exploit and make money for themselves.
Also, it shouldn't be political at all. And again, she's no longer Tory. She should be out on her ear, no question at all. But she had some class, which she clearly doesn't. Like her lingerie, I would say. She would resign from the peerage anyway.
I never found her lingerie would fit particularly well, but that's a different story. But the one thing they can't take off her, because she's a life peer, is her title Baroness. But she can be excluded from the House of Lords. There is the House of Lords Expulsion and Suspension Act 2015 allows them to turn around and say, right, that's it, you're out. You can't come in here. You can't.
Yeah, you can't have a say over people's laws.
You can't have a say over anything else.
I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, again, there are so many people. There are so many beings. One of the reasons we're in the mess we're in right now, whether it was Labour or the Tories, whoever, and by the way, most of these decisions, more money would have been spent on lockdown because we'd have been in more lockdowns for longer if Labour had been in charge. They made it very clear. They demanded more and more and more, deeper, longer, harder, faster. But they'd never have said the kids would have been out of school for 2 years like they were in California if we'd had Labour in charge, for goodness sake, because they'd been hot to the unions. But we're in this absurd situation where huge amounts of money was spent, huge amounts of money, and we're paying for it now. And I said at the time, I'm really proud of Furley. If you're going to have to, at the time they claimed it was necessary, and at the time I believed them because I didn't realise they were lying to us. More for me, won't let that happen again. No. There was never any need for them to shut down businesses. Sweden did not shut down on the same basis. Sweden did not have more deaths. They had fewer deaths. No child has suffered. No child missed school. And their economy has not been completely... No, their economy has not been completely destroyed. And they made those choices, and we're having to pay for it. But a huge amount of the money we're paying for is for the fraud on a mass scale that took place. And I want every single one of those people to pay every single thing back. I want to take their businesses. I want to take their houses. And I want you to tax me more to build prisons just for them, and I want those people behind bars because those people are evil.
I agree with you on 90% of what you said, but it's very easy with 2020 hindsight to be able to say this was all wrong.
No.
Sweden made a different choice and they got it right.
They used the facts.
But large... If
you listen to the press conferences from the beginning to middle March, every single thing that we know now, we knew then. Everything we now know to have been wrong. They said the chief scientific officer, the chief medical officer, they said the reason why we're not closing schools is because of this. The reason why we're not the chances of death, or every single thing they knew then. I assumed, because I'm an idiot. Not a lot of us are, that when these top medical professionals who'd been so honest to us and hadn't panicked, that when they changed their minds and said, no, we need to lock down, that there was a reason for that. There wasn't a reason for that. Neil Ferguson, who also, by the way, should be in prison, the Professor Neil Ferguson, Imperial College, he had some made-up computer model data nonsense. He'd been wrong about everything before. He was trusted this time, again, for no good reason. And Dominic Cummings and him persuaded the Prime Minister to lock down. Now, I'm sorry, it was the wrong decision then. Lives were lost. Thousands upon thousands of people died as a result of that, purely because of that decision. We would have lost fewer people to COVID and fewer deaths overall if we had not followed those policies. I will never forgive them, ever, ever, ever. And I'm sorry, I'm on a roll now. This nonsense that with hindsight, no, we had all the information then. I thought they were telling us the truth. Everything that we have seen, Hancock's messages and everything we've seen shows that these decisions were made for political reasons. They scared the living daylights out of people. And then people said, well, shouldn't we lock down? And they went, oh, OK. Sorry, that's not how you lead a country in a crisis. They should be ashamed of themselves.
My friend was blown in two in Iraq.
Yep.
We had the information to say that route was going to be targeted at that time by that team and all the rest of it. It was already in there. But because of all of the confusion of everything else that was put around, that was wrong. And because we didn't have the right processing bit on it, that never got processed. No, but it's a similar sort of thing. And the trouble is there was an awful lot of disinformation being pushed around, and we've got politics by disinformation at the minute.
No, we do, and we have more of it then.
And this is where we have to stop this disinformation, and that comes out of our politicians, because that's what sows doubt.
I don't think we should use words like this. I mean, we say either someone is lying, or they're telling the truth, or they're saying what they believe to be the truth. What we need is evidence-based policymaking. Now, in the moment of war, I think war is different from peacetime. We were in peacetime, and they were making sensible decisions, and then they basically just PR'd themselves into panicking, and they cost lives as a result. And I'm sorry,
most other countries around the world PR'd themselves as well into panicking.
Well, but not every country did. And our medics knew that they didn't need to do it. They knew it wasn't necessary, and they believed a stupid computer model. Listen, we have net zero policies which are they're plummeting us headfirst into poverty deliberately, and they are from computer models which are also absolutely nonsense.
Do you use a weather app and watch the weather?
And they're mostly
computer models that give us nonsense as well.
Someone's going to go, what's the difference between weather and climate?
That's unfortunately real life.
It is real life, but I'm sorry. They knew perfectly well that it wasn't necessary, and they lied to us. And again, the idea that one of those people right now is a government minister makes me want to vomit into my own bloody mouth. It really does. But anyway, and breathe.
Breathe.
Finally, I just want to talk about this. Badenoch vowing to scrap this failed climate change law, brought in originally by Ed Miliband in 2008. Turbocharged by Theresa May. Yeah. Given, I think was there 90 minutes of 3 people chatting in the Commons, and then let's just pass the law that's committing us to being a net zero emitter of carbon emissions by 2050. Abject nonsense. Won't save the planet, even if the carbon was the issue for climate change as opposed to coming out of an ice age. Absolute nonsense, costing us a fortune, trillions. I mean, they didn't do a cost-benefit analysis. When one was done briefly by the Treasury under Philip Hammond, the only useful thing that man ever did was it was about $1 trillion, and that was on a good day. But here's the thing: Camille Badenoch was a cheerleader for all this stuff. Now she's not. Is she, again, like with the asylum issue, with Labour and the Tories, just basically running to catch up with reform policies?
Well, bed and moth, because she's fluttering to the latest bright light, which is what's coming out of reform, and all the rest of it, instead of coming up with her own policies. She's very quiet. People aren't talking about her.
She wasn't mentioned once this week.
She wasn't mentioned once by Keir Starmer or by the Lib Dem.
We'll see. I mean, this party conference starting this weekend in Manchester. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. We're going to keep going hammer and tongs in the break. I've got a funny feeling. I'd love to get your calls on air as well. Whether you want to talk about migration, the net zero targets being slashed. I mean, genuinely, the net zero targets being slashed would be the biggest thing economically. The migration issue, I think, is a massive economic cost, but it doesn't touch the sides. It doesn't touch the sides of the cost of these net zero targets. But we'll be talking more about that coming up. But get your thoughts on air as well. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
trying to paint the next election as a straight shootout between Labour and Reform, so that if people are so put off by the horrible, monstrous racist, as he would say it, Nigel Farage, then the only thing which they can do is hold their nose and vote for Labour. The Tories not even at the races, and then other minor left-wing parties, the Greens and the Lib Dems, all coalesce around Starmer's banner in a basically big attempt to stop Nigel Farage getting into Downing Street.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:29 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just some breaking news for you. Very worrying breaking news coming out of Manchester. Police and paramedics at the scene have reported multiple stabbing at a synagogue in Manchester, in Crumpsall in North Manchester. Of course, it's Yom Kippur, Jewish holiday. Many people will be obviously at synagogue. But Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, has said that there is a serious incident, but he's also said that the immediate danger is over. But multiple people have been stabbed, is what the police are reporting. We'll keep you up to date on that very, very worrying incident as we get information. Right now, let's go to your phone calls. Lots of you getting in touch, 0344 499 1000. And certainly Keir Starmer's announcements on migration seem to be catching your interest. Let's go to Alan, who's in Salford. Very good morning to you, Alan. What do you want to say?
Hello, Julia.
Hello.
Yeah. It seems he's gone over to Europe now, our friend. He's gone to be comforted and rubbed his back and all this lot that they do to him. But what makes me laugh is he's giving £84 million to Africa and other countries now. He's pledged it. And then he goes on about, well, he is the biggest Willy Wonka I've ever heard, golden tickets. He's giving out more tickets than Willy Wonka ever did.
That's
That's
true.
a new nickname now. Instead of two-tier or whatever, free gear.
No idea.
He's going to be Willy Wonka. And I don't think I'll spell Wonka the right way.
No, please, don't get me in trouble. Don't get me in trouble. But this is the thing. So you just think is this idea, everything that Keir Starmer announces is kind of a bit too little too late?
Well, far too late. And also that the train wreck he started off, all this, reforms, and I'm a reform member, we're all Nazis. He's just blew it. But the trouble is, we cannot get rid of this lot. Honestly.
Well, that's democracy. They're elected for an up to 5-year term. I mean, people knew the score.
But these golden tickets, he's saying, he's given more golden tickets out since he's been in power. What is it, 40% has gone up?
Yeah.
These people coming across?
They're not, and no one in their right minds thinks these people are going to end up being sent anywhere. I mean, come on, give me a break. We might do 6 of them in an exchange scheme with France. Alan, thank you very much indeed for that. I'm going to have that Willy Wonka image in my head for the rest of the day. Paul is on the line in Southampton. Hi, Paul, what do you want to say?
Hello, Julia.
Hello.
First of all, you're right about COVID. I'm sorry, Philip, you're wrong.
So no.
But it's what Philip was saying about the army land. I'm an HGV driver and I drive around the Salisbury area and the such like. And honestly, you would not believe how much open land is owned by the Ministry of Defence.
Yeah.
You can drive for miles from Salisbury down towards Dorset and that. And there's mile upon mile of...
Build those tents, build those camps. And then,
Absolutely.
and that's the thing. If you can come and live in a hotel and you can get some money and you can go and work on the black market, being a delivery rider, and there's lots of motivation, and you're probably going to get today lots of motivation to be here. If you are stuck in one of those tents in the middle of nowhere, not able to do anything for months on end, I just don't think the same pull is there. I just don't think it is. Yeah, with you all the way, Paul. Thank you very much indeed. 10:33 is the time. Going to take a quick break. We'll keep you up to date on developments on that news flash about stabbing. Police say multiple stabbing at a North Manchester synagogue in Crumpsall, of course, on the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. Just to remind you, Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, says it is a serious incident, but the immediate danger is over. We'll bring you more details on that. Up next, going to talk to Sir Ian Duncan-Smith about, Tory conference coming up, and is Kemi Badenoch just, going to be chasing reform policies in the same way Labour is? This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 10:36 is the time just to get you up to date on events in Manchester. There has been reports of a multiple stabbing at a synagogue in Manchester, at the Heaton Park Synagogue. Bearing in mind, of course, today's Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Families will be at synagogue fasting over this holy weekend, but also no phones as well, so out of contact with people who give news information. But there has been what police say is a multiple stabbing at Heaton Park Synagogue. Armed police have arrived on the scene. They have shot a suspect. It is not known whether he is dead or alive, but armed police have been seen at the scene, obviously paramedics at the scene as well. Now, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has said the immediate danger is over, but it is a serious incident with multiple people stabbed, according to Manchester Police. We'll keep you up to date on developments there. Let's speak right now to Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, MP, Conservative MP, former Conservative Party leader. Good morning to you, Sir Ian. I'm sure you want to pass comment on what sounds like a horrific incident in Manchester.
Yes, it's terrible. Actually, it's the idea that somebody in their worship has been attacked, and a whole group of people are attacked, and particularly because there is a rise of anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. Yep. It's everywhere. I'm horrified by it, and I think it's appalling. So I don't know who obviously did the stabbing, but the one thing I will say to the police: make sure you are clear as to who has carried out this stabbing quickly. Otherwise, you will end up with lots of speculation. You have to be clear about this, be forceful, be straight, and tell us the truth. And don't try and hide it because you're worried about what may happen. The truth is, if you hide it, worse things will happen. Absolutely.
I couldn't agree with you more. Well, we'll keep people up to date with their developments. Let's talk first of all about, in terms of news stories, about Keir Starmer announcing his plan to tighten asylum laws. He says he wants to end the golden ticket to settling the UK. So when someone gets asylum, wins asylum, they get to stay for 5 years. After that point, they apply for indefinite leave to remain, at which point bring your whole family over. They've been accused of just another gimmick. Is it another gimmick?
I think it is, actually, because if you think about it, you can stay up to 5 years. If you're somebody crossing the boats, you'll buy that quite happily, even if it means, you're going to be kicked out at some point, you think, because you always believe you won't be. And the record for the UK government over the last God knows how many years has been that people don't get kicked out, really, and that's the gamble that they will take. That's why they pay for the boats. That's why they come across, risk their lives, because they think at the end of it all, they will still be here in the UK, and something will be done to make sure that they stay permanently. And to do it on a blanket basis does actually hit other people. Like, for example, those on B&O passports who fled Hong Kong after China moved in, which we welcome them quite legitimately here because they were essentially British citizens. They'll be caught up in this as well. And, of course, China is doing its level best to grab hold of these people and drag them back to Hong Kong, threatening them. They have false police stations here. So this... It sounds to me after the Labour conference like a sort of peculiar gimmick that they want to sort of suggest they're really bold and brave on this. But this is not going to solve the problem. The problem is that if you come over here, you will basically stay here.
Yeah, and they know that.
You get them out, get them away, and then that pull factor is gone.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you've been talking about this for many years, even against your own government when they were in power on this. We're told the army chiefs are now being put on standby to build camps for migrants as they launch this new sort of borders blitz, we're told. The thing is, the British public just sort of hear this stuff and they just roll their eyes, they shake their heads and go, oh, more of the same. None of it's going to make any difference because you don't really mean it. They don't really mean it. No one really means it. And the whole time, every policy that's announced is basically, whether it's by the Conservatives or whether it's by Labour Party, is just following stuff that Nigel Farage and Reform have been calling for years. You're just following in his footsteps, aren't you?
Well, no, this was originally the plan from the word go under the last government. The trouble was, it was stymied by the House of Lords and by the judges. And that's because we should have and could have and must get rid of the Convention of Human Rights application within these cases. And Starmer's started suddenly talking about elements of the human rights issue. But, you know, he's a human rights lawyer, and the whole place is packed with human rights lawyers, and their determination to stop this will be bound in. So unless you actually literally break the link with the Convention of Human Rights, are leaving it in that regard, and also stopping UK judges from stopping people being deported because of the nature of the right to a family life, or, you know, the Children's Convention, the UN, or the Refugee Convention. These all have to go. And the one thing I will say is that Kemi is actually going to come forward with a very serious plan as how you do that, what it will take, and how to get that done, and then immediately start accelerating the withdrawals of people back to wherever it is, Rwanda or wherever we settle them.
I'm still absolutely convinced that no one would believe that any of this will ever really happen. Here's something I really do hope does. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think I represent quite a lot of other members of the public who are just completely cynical that anyone in power currently, all the Tories, all they have got the will to deal with this. They just don't trust you guys anymore.
Well, I know there's a sort of cynicism about it, and I've been around.
Reality check about it.
Sorry?
A reality check about it.
Well, it is, and there's a cynicism, quite reality about that. And the reality for us is you're going to have to say what you're going to do, and you have to do it.
Yep. Here's something else.
We say we want to do it, we don't do it.
No, well, indeed. I mean, again, at least we thought you guys sometimes maybe had the will, but you definitely didn't have the way. No one even thinks Labour have got the will. When it comes to net zero, it's another big announcement we've got from your party leader, Kemi Badenoch. It's been very quiet and barely got a mention even at Labour or Lib Dem conference, so we're just too busy attacking Nigel Farage. But she has vowed to scrap the failed climate change law, drop all those targets, which, again, are insane, will cost trillions, busy impoverishing the country. Again, is this a policy that she's been dragged to kicking and screaming because it's what an awful lot of Tory or ex-Tory or would-be Tory voters want? Or is this something that she genuinely believes? Because she was bigging up this stuff when she was in government.
Yeah, I do genuinely believe that that's what she sees. I mean, I've been opposed to this thing from day one.
You have?
But the reality is very simple. What's going on at the moment, the reason why people are poorer, the reason why they feel like they're being hammered by everything else is because the costs of net zero are hidden. They are taxes. And the government hasn't got the courage to tell everybody how much extra in tax they are paying to get this ludicrous case of Miliband on net zero. I mean, here we saw a story just today that it's cost them over £1 billion to shut down the wind farms because they're generating electricity that they can't send anywhere.
It's painful. It's actually
and then
painful.
People are suddenly realizing what this is all about. They're going to have huge cables, towers all over the UK, whilst people are having to have a new set of ability to be able to transfer electricity all over the UK, damaging the environment, making where you live awful. All of this stuff is yet to come. All of that is being paid for by extra charges on everything you can imagine to do with net zero, which are hidden taxes, and that we need to come out and say enough is enough. This rush to net zero is an absurdity. It's an absolute absurdity for a country that has less than 0.5% of any kind of emissions to affect the world.
No, but also even the policy, as stated, doesn't cut emissions. It just means that we don't have them on our border. So we can just have dirtier products made abroad in China in coal-fired factories, shipped over on big oil tankers and all diesel-powered, and brought over here. And then we can go, oh, look at us. We haven't emitted many carbon emissions. I mean, it's
that's exactly the point. This is the whole point about the lie of the net zero nonsense, is that somehow by wind farms and by solar arrays we're going to be okay. But the reality is we have to have gas power stations now permanently on standby. They never were before. Now they have to be on standby because when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, they have to step in immediately to cover the charge. That's more expensive and it uses more gas than we used to use. That is the absurdity of the net zero nonsense that's going on from all these people beating their breasts and claiming they love the environment.
Well, but also,
I love the environment, and that's why I want to get rid of these solar arrays, which cost the earth.
Don't you care about the children and the planets they're in? I think that's what I have to cry at some point.
I care about our environment, which is why I want to get rid of these solar arrays, because they are ridiculous. Some of them are still made by slave labour. We don't care about the real abuses taking place elsewhere, just to provide us.
It's a virtue signal. I'm going to have to interrupt because I've just want to get you on just one final topic before I get back to the breaking news. But Michelle Mone, Lady Mone, the bra queen, she, her husband, involved in a company, £122 million payment from taxpayers, from the government, doesn't have its own money, it's our money. It was given to them given to his company during COVID as a result of her using this VIP fast-track route for Tory peers and Tory MPs to basically sell completely useless PPE equipment that was no use whatsoever. £122 million being demanded by the courts to be paid back. Fine as well. Should she also lose her peerage?
That's a matter, honestly, for what happens inside the laws, and I really don't understand how that works.
No. She's legally allowed to be, and she's a lawmaker in this country.
If it is true at the end of the day, then that is a reasonable approach to take. That therefore shouldn't be part of any further, politics within the Houses of Parliament. But the reality here is there's another question to be asked as well. I mean, how appallingly bad was the system that when things were sent to them, they didn't check, test, or understand whether they were any good, and they accepted them. If that was the case, they carry as much of the blame as anybody else for taking substandard product. So my question with all this, it doesn't just stop with the end product, it starts also with the system that seems to have been completely and utterly pointless.
And an abject lack of, checking up. A company that's been invented today happens to be, involved in, she made a financial benefit along with her kids in a trust from the money came from this business, and she's pushing this business forward, set up by her husband that day. I mean, a 4-year-old would smell a rat. It's absolutely extraordinary. Sir Duncan-Smith, we'll have to leave it there. Former Conservative Party leader, currently an MP as well. Thank you so much. Just to bring you more on that breaking news about that event in Manchester. So at Heaton Park Synagogue, we now know that 4 people have been injured in an attack. A car was driven at members of the public outside the synagogue, bearing in mind it's Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar. Many families will be at synagogue today. This was a car driven at members of the public outside the synagogue. A security guard was attacked with a knife. Firearms officers were deployed and a shot was fired. It is believed that it is the suspect who'd been driving the car and who knifed security guard who has been shot. It is not known whether he is alive or dead, but believed to be still alive. Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, says the immediate danger is over, but that it is a serious incident. We'll bring you more on that as soon as we get it. Up next, we're going to be talking to former Met Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. I want to talk to him about that and also the latest on what's going on in the Met Police and indeed that jailing of grooming gangs in Rochdale yesterday. This is Talk.
They can't attack the policies that we're coming out with because they know that these policies are popular. And in fact, they try and ape these policies, as we saw this week with Labour's sort of pale imitation of our position on indefinite leave to remain. So they can't attack the policies. So they attack the people. And by suggesting that reform, that we're racist, that we're Nazi, it's an attempt just to put us out of mainstream, respectable political debate altogether. So it's profoundly undemocratic in its purpose.
Us on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. It's 10:52. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk. Philip Ingram still with me. Also joined now by former Metropolitan Police DCI Mike Neville. Good morning to you. Invited you in to talk about a couple of other stories, but I must get your reaction first of all to this news, breaking news coming out of Manchester of a stabbing and a car ramming outside a synagogue, outside the Heaton Park Synagogue in North Manchester on Yom Kippur, the biggest, most holiest day, biggest religious day and most holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Families will be at the synagogue. Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester Mayor, says that 4 people have been injured in the attack, a car driven at members of the public, firearms officers deployed after reports that a security guard had been attacked with a knife. And about an hour and 20 minutes ago, shots were fired by police. It is believed the offender was shot. We don't know yet whether or not he's alive or dead, but it's been declared as a potentially terrorist incident by Greater Manchester Police.
Now, of course, we don't know all the facts yet, but this is just terrible for the Jewish community.
I think it's terrible for everybody.
Well, particularly the Jewish community, who live in absolute fear, I think, at the moment. I think we don't know the suspects' motives at the moment. We can suspect them, but I think this is often whipped up. All these Palestinian flags that fly everywhere, the hatred that's been drawn up by that.
The linking of Jewish people living in Britain with Israeli government policy.
And we've got government policy condemning Israel, recognising Palestine. All these things, I think, have just whipped up a terrible hatred of this anti-Semitism. It's something we should have said goodbye to in the 1940s, and it's back with us now, and it's just completely wicked and unacceptable. And the other people I feel sorry for are the firearms officers who are deployed to these. They have to make decisions, and if the officer has fired a shot, then that officer will be worried about, all sorts of inquiries and all that.
And then they get suspended, and exactly.
But it does show, Julie, with all the other news that's going on, how we deploy men and women on our street to protect us, and they do their duty bravely.
Absolutely, got to the scene very, very quickly by the sounds of it. Yeah. Look, let's also talk about something that these didn't get to the scene very, very quickly. Took many years. Rochdale grooming gang, 7 of them were jailed. I hate it when they go, they've been jailed for a total of 170 years or something. Yeah. The ringleader, Mohammed Zahid, known as Boss Man, he ran a market stall. He's known as Boss Man. Who are these people? But he got jailed for 35 years. And again, that's a lie. No, he hasn't been. He won't serve the full term, will he? I think they serve 2/3 of their term. There's a new law going through. I don't think it's been passed into law yet to actually require sex offenders to serve their full terms. But we are talking about it. Look, it involved numerous girls at the time, but 2 particular
hundreds,
schoolgirls,
I think, is thousands.
Yeah, but 2 particular schoolgirls who were 13 at the time, groomed, raped, beaten, horrific. And these aren't the first men to be convicted of being involved in a Rochdale grooming. Who wasn't involved in a grooming gang in Rochdale, by the way? Because it does seem to me that an awful lot of people were.
Well, the good thing is about this 35-year sentence, even if he only serves 2/3. The man is 65, so I hope he'll be meeting Satan after dying in prison. So that'll be the end of him.
Maybe meet Satan in prison.
It's how many of these gangs are still operating, how many of them still exist.
That's it. This isn't historic. No, it's happening now.
How many of these people are still going on? And what gets me was there's all the things in the newspaper at the moment about these unacceptable comments made by the Met police officers, and they said these wicked things, and they should be sacked. Not one senior officer involved in the grooming gang scandal has been sacked. All those senior officers who have not said unacceptable things, who have not said horrible things, who allowed girls to be killed, raped, sexually assaulted.
They were killed. Girls were killed.
And brutalised. Those officers who, cynically, for their own career, thought, do you know what, I'll keep my mouth shut.
Or worse.
I'll tell people not to do things.
They raped the girls themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Those people have not been held to account. So while the BBC are banging on about sergeants and PCs saying these stupid and evil and wicked things, what about people who allowed girls to be treated like that. Terrible.
It is just extraordinary. And these women now, as they are all these years later, getting justice, having their voice heard in court.
Good.
I mean, it's just incredible. They are just so brave. And the fact that this is going on today, and we had to fight tooth and nail for that, public inquiry. Haven't heard much about that so far. I mean, no urgency, guys. It's just girls getting raped and tortured.
It is shocking.
Nothing to worry about. Take it at your own pace. It's really is obscene, isn't it? We know there are problems in the police. You know that. You worked in the Metropolitan Police. We've seen all those problems. We had it very obviously made very, very clear to us when a Metropolitan Police officer, abducted, raped and murdered Sarah Everard. We've had massive exposés since of bad behaviour. And we've had another one, BBC Undercover, Panorama last night, and a reporter went undercover and has exposed, on tape, on video, on audio, some really foul language and opinions being expressed by not just one, but quite a lot of officers. We've had a number of officers who've been suspended, but we're talking about officers dismissing rape claims by domestic abuse by a pregnant woman. We've just got some really obvious blatant racism. We've got some very obvious misogyny, and we've also got officers who complained internally being dismissed, ignored over their concerns. How bad do you think it is?
Well, let me say this. Firstly, every day out there's men and women who are facing knives and guns, as we've said, doing the right thing.
And we thank them.
And people who, from a detective's point of view, those officers who made comments about hurting prisoners, bullying prisoners, they're stupid. Not only bad, they're stupid, because as a detective, I used to interview the prisoners in the morning and get information out of them. So they would be cutting off my source of intelligence. And some of the things about dismissing rape allegations, they're completely unacceptable, and people should be dealt with. But the Met is being portrayed here as a uniquely wicked organisation. I was proud to be a Scotland Yard detective. And what I'd ask people is this: if you put an undercover reporter in a hospital tomorrow for 6 months, what would we hear? We hear about doctors and nurses being cynical about the drug addicts who's come in for the 90th time. We would the person who comes in claiming that they fell over and the toilet brush went up their anus. Everybody would go in and have a look at it and have a laugh. There would be doctors and nurses talking about sexual things.
I think in most workplaces we wouldn't survive.
A group of journalists. And imagine if an undercover person came to, whoever's listening now, went to the Guardian offices and went out and the pub and listened to what they said. So I think, and what I would say as well is that let's have punishments that fit equally. So, for example, there's a doctor recently, a Dr. Anjum in Manchester, who left an operation, had sex with a patient, and then he had sex with a nurse and came back, put a patient's life at risk. He's allowed to continue as a doctor. So, if that's acceptable and you're allowed to continue,
then
let's have an equal
I think the key thing is, I think that people's private conversations should be able to be private, but these were in the workplace. But that's crucial.
Some of them are down the pub.
The crucial thing here is that people having power over us. Look, we've got to go to a break. We're going to have an update on the news because, of course, we're getting more information coming in about this incident in Manchester. I want to talk more about this, Mike. Could you stay on for a few more moments so we can come back to you after the update on the news? This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. Very much appreciate your company. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, I so appreciate you joining me today. So much to talk about. If you do miss anything, go to my YouTube page. It's called the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You can hit subscribe so you never have to miss a thing. We're going to be talking lots more about the latest announcement from the government in terms of refugees losing an automatic right to settle in Britain for life. Also about Kemi Badenoch and her promise to scrap Britain's flagship net zero laws, but also going to be talking about the army chiefs on standby to build migrant camps as part of a crackdown on illegal small boats as well, and Michelle Mone and whether or not she should keep her peerage. All that coming up, but I also want to get you up to date on that breaking news coming out of Manchester. And we do now know that 4 people have been injured in that attack outside a synagogue at the Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester. The Greater Manchester Police has confirmed that the suspect did not gain access to the building, but a car was driven at members of the public who were outside the synagogue. Bearing in mind today is Yom Kippur. It's the most significant, the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar, when every Jewish family will be at synagogue. 4 people injured in that attack. Reports that a guard, of course all synagogues now in Britain outrageously need to have have guards of some sort, but a guard was attacked with a knife. At this point, firearms officers were deployed and shots were fired. Now, one man was shot. He's believed to have been the offender, and it is believed, according to Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, that he is dead, but it has not been confirmed. The Greater Manchester Police have said that their terrorism may well be involved. Well, look, we're still in the studio with me. I've got Philip Ingram, MBE. He's a former senior military intelligence officer, joining us for the whole show. Very grateful Mike Neville has stayed with us for a few moments. He's a former Metropolitan Police DCI. Do want to carry on a conversation about the Met Police as well, Mike, but in terms of this attempted, this stabbing at a Manchester synagogue, we're told, multiple people involved, multiple people injured, firearms police being involved. This is a very serious incident. It
is a very serious incident, and I pray for the people who've been injured, and I also for the police officers who've been bravely tasked there. One of the things I picked up on what you said there, Julia, was that I went to give a talk in a synagogue about forensic science, and I was shocked at the time a security guard had to let me. That's how bad it's got. And that was 4 or 5 years ago. That the fact that people have to have a security guard on a place of worship is absolutely terrible.
I live in North London. Lots of synagogues, even the Jewish schools have to have security guards, and the local Jewish community centre and the local synagogue. It is an absolute outrage and an embarrassment to our country that is needed.
It is an embarrassment to our country, and I'm sure that the Greater Manchester Police, the counter-terrorism branch, they'll be looking into this incident. They'll know by now who this suspect is. They'll know. They'll be looking into, is he involved with any other people? Are they going to, looking, can they prevent any other attacks?
How much information will we be getting, and how soon? Remember, we've had this whole big debate about, do we find out? I mean, the ethnicity, the nationality, or whatever.
Julie, I can tell you, it was a white man in Liverpool. You remember that? That's the cynicism that when
a white British man.
When we're not told is when people get very cynical. And let's hope that the Greater Manchester Police, I'm sure the counter-terrorism branch, they're utterly professional and they're on their case. Let's hope their press department is as professional as they are.
Yeah, if it's counted, if the terrorism, they haven't ruled it out, but it's certainly something they're looking at. If that is the case, the obvious assumption we are going to make, and in no way am I claiming to know this or the reports are claiming this, but the obvious assumption people will not unreasonably make is that there is an Islamic fundamentalist ideological background to this.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that is the case. I do not know that to be sure, but that would be the obvious leap to make.
Absolutely, and that's what people say. And what people can see is there's been the marches about Palestine, the continual flags. It's just almost like whipping it up. We've had MPs voted in across this country on policy in Gaza rather than policies in Oldham or something. Like, this is how, you know, we're becoming. It's become crazy in this country that we're looking into things. We've become grouped together. People are voting in blocks. It should never have happened, and this is where we find ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Mike, I want to come back to you on another big story involving the Metropolitan Police, but Philip Ingram, you're a former senior military intelligence officer, and again, I think in terms of what people are going to think may well be the motive of this, again, we don't know, but we have seen this, you know, shouting of genocide about Israel in Gaza, which is not happening, mass starvation, and, you know, this evil Israel, all this stuff, and we get it from, you know, foreign secretaries and prime ministers, and, you know, and it's people from the very, very, very top, and that conflation in many people's minds with ordinary British people who are Jewish, who may or may not even be pro-Israel, they may not agree with any government policy, but have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with a war happening in the Middle East, but being targeted. Now, we don't know that that is the cause. It may have nothing to do with this. There may be a grievance from somebody who used to work at the synagogue. We don't know, and it's very important that we need to state that. But people will be suspicious.
Oh, they'll be very suspicious, and this is where information is the tool that the police need to use to get the truth out in the street. You know, that security guard probably wasn't Jewish, may not have been Jewish. The people who were hit by the car
may have just been passers-by.
May have just been passers-by and all the rest of it. But, you know, the immediate response from the police is to deal with the immediate attack, to prepare for any additional threats that might be around, because you don't know, to sort the casualties out, and then secure the scene for further evidence and try and work out what goes on.
It does sound extraordinary that someone would ram a car outside a synagogue on the holiest day of the year. I mean, that's, you know, you're looking at motive then. But also, crucially, the armed police appear to have been on the scene very, very quickly.
But we saw that in 2017 with the terrorist attacks.
Yeah, but then you're talking about
this.
Westminster and London Bridge, where you would expect police to be
and Manchester, a major city, you have got a significant number of armed police around and dealing with it. And you never know. There might have been intelligence in the background suggesting that there was potential, so there might have been increased patrols in the streets. We don't know, and it's dangerous to speculate at this stage.
Well, we'll keep you up to date on any developments on that, but certainly Greater Manchester Police and indeed Andy Burnham, the Mayor, have said that the immediate danger is certainly over, and the latest reports have said that the suspect involved in the incident is believed to have acted alone. Right, Mike Neville, let me just come back, since I've got you in the studio. We didn't get to have, because of this story, such a long chat about this Metropolitan Police investigation that's now taking place after this BBC undercover filming at Charing Cross Police Station. It's in, you know, central London, you know, right near Trafalgar Square. Now, this is a station that's been criticised many times as well before, investigation after investigation, but this secret filming by an undercover reporter, revealing, I mean, some extraordinarily just prehistoric views of some of these officers, attitudes towards women who claim to be raped, a woman who's pregnant, claiming domestic abuse and raped by her partner. Well, so she says. Now, okay, to be fair, it's an allegation, it's not proven, but laughing about sort of, you know, violence against some inmates and custody sergeants. I mean, people who have extraordinary power. Now, you were mentioning just before the news, there is this issue, like, you know, you put an undercover reporter into any workplace, you will find people say, I mean, good God, we wouldn't last 3 seconds here. Certainly I wouldn't. And I've always defended, you know, the right, people like to make, you know, dark jokes and things like that. And I certainly also think people would be allowed to say personal things in WhatsApp groups that are private, that are not public. They're not standing up in the middle of a work meeting and saying this or that. Is it different, though, when you're talking about people who have been given statutory power over us they have power over, you know, whether you're black, white, man or woman or whatever, if you're arrested and you're in a custody suite, the idea that the people who are in control of your safety and your freedom do appear to have views which are not very pleasant about large groups of people. Let's go with that.
Well, let's say this, that these comments are unacceptable, what's been said, these views. But the trouble is, we ask men and women to deal with the most horrible incidents, most frightening things, horrible people sometimes. And there is this issue about dark humour, saying things that, you know, to burn off. If you're put in a stressful situation, you've been fighting with somebody. If we're saying we want people who can grab hold, have to fight with people who come in the things, who are spitting at them and put them in the cell, and we expect them to behave like saints all the time, then it ain't happening.
I completely agree with you.
So we've got to temper this, and we've got to say that these things are unacceptable, they've got to be dealt with. But as I've said, if it's the case that a doctor can leave an operating theatre, have sex with a nurse and come back after leaving a patient who might die, can keep his job, then I say that these officers should be disciplined and taught a lesson for what they've done, got a grip of. But what we're seeing is we're seeing people calling for their heads. And likewise, when we roll back to the grooming gangs, how many senior officers allowed all that wickedness to go on, and they have kept their jobs. So let's put it in the balance. And I can only reiterate, as you said, if you put this, a hospital's the same sort of environment, stressful, you've got drama, you're
dealing with
frightened, you're dealing with all sorts of bad things, and people are going to say things. So it would be anywhere. So to portray the Met as uniquely is bad. It's untrue.
I was thinking the military very much the same as well. Philip Ingram, your thoughts on that?
Very, very much so.
We're not excusing some of the language and the attitude, but
dark humour around. Remember, one story about a buddy and the two buddies going and attacking the Falkland Islands, and one of them gets hit with a mortar round, his leg's blown off, and he's lying there screaming in the ground, saying, "I've lost my leg, I've lost my leg," and his buddy comes up to him and says, "No, you haven't, you silly," and used racist language because he was and said, "It's lying over there, now let's get this sorted," and both of them burst into laughter. But
that's how you cope with that sort of horror. And that's the thing, and people's use language. Again, I think the key thing we've discovered over the last few years, that when all this has emerged, is, and we've got the St Mark Rowley, the Met Chief, who refuses to, will not say the words, this is not systemic. And I think he's right on that, and it's not something that all people believe. I mean, I've got friends who are coppers. I don't believe for a moment they've ever had any of those thoughts. But when someone's just been, smashing you over the head with a bottle, and you've been dealing with someone, severely mentally ill, and it's just sort of for the 15th time that day, and someone's vomited on you, I've got a funny feeling that their language would be pretty darn choice. And again, I think most of us who sit at desk jobs don't really understand that, and we're making judgments. But we do have an issue, because we know that there are officers who are women who are gay, who are black or Asian, who say they have had to leave, they have faced outrageous behaviour, and we know that officer after officer, and I've had them tell me either on air, off air, or in person, that if you speak out, that canteen culture is everyone knows that John's a wrong, but if you speak out,
anymore.
You're the but you know what I mean. That if you speak out, you're the one who's going to be ostracised, not them.
I don't know. I think the police moved a long way to where people could feel safe to make complaints. People came to me when I was a boss, and I dealt with them greatly. And I think these people should be dealt with. What I'm only asking is that we temper it, and we judge them as we judge other people. And we judge, as I say, there's often a snobbery, I find, with doctors and the like. They're middle class and nice, and the police officers are the plebs and working class, and they often get the bad treatment compared to what the doctors and nurses
Can I
get.
just read you both just a statement? We've said Keir Starmer is flying back from the European Political Community Summit in Denmark to chair an emergency COBRA meeting on the Manchester attack. That would certainly suggest that terror is considered to be the motive. We understand from the police that this suspect, who has been shot, is not confirmed yet whether he's dead or alive, did act alone. But the Prime Minister's issued a statement saying, "I'm appalled by the attack at a synagogue in Crumpsall. The fact that this has taken place on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, makes it all the more horrific. My thoughts are with the loved ones of all those affected, and my thanks go to the emergency services and all the first responders." Your response to that, Philip Ingram?
Well, Prime Minister coming back to respond if it is a single lone attacker that's been dealt with seems a little bit over the top. He's got a Home Secretary who's empowered to do this sort of thing, and it should be that.
A bomb disposal unit is now at the scene. So
I've seen unconfirmed videos coming from the scene where the police firearms officers who shot the individual were saying, "We think he's got a bomb. Please move back." So there's unconfirmed reports that there could be something else.
So we're looking in this case at consider a car being used as a weapon to ram people, then stabbing as you, and having a
like
bomb.
the 2017 attacks on London Bridge and Borough Market and elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a standard thing that different terror groups groom people into self-radicalising and carrying out these sorts of attacks because they're easy to do.
And that's the thing, you can't, if it's one person on their own sitting in their bedroom with the internet, not making contact with anybody else.
As of today, there are 3,000 people under active investigation by the Metropolitan Counter-Terror Police in 900 investigations. That is a huge number of people that are keeping people awake.
Can we point out that the vast majority of those will be Islamist extremists?
Yes, the majority are.
I know a lot of people talk about far-right extremism and terrorism.
An increasing percentage
in this country, the threat is
the majority
Islamist.
are Islamist.
Mike Neville?
Well, what I can do is I'm hopeful. I'm looking at the bomb disposal officers who have to go there and deal with that dangerous weapon, but the police will be hoping that they can defuse it safely because that will provide an enormous amount of evidence about is it real explosives. They'll be searching on the computers, digital devices of the suspect to see
are they radicalised?
Who supplied this stuff. So let's hope that the bomb disposal staff are safe, they defuse it, and that gives the police some real insight into how this character operates and if they can get the other people who supplied the equipment that he's used.
Yeah, indeed. Or such that you would even need other people to supply it, given that a lot of this stuff is available on the internet about how to make these sort of bombs. Let's say that's getting you up to date on what is going on. We'll keep you up to date on what's going on at the scene in Manchester. Bomb disposal unit at the scene. Firearms officers have been deployed. The suspect has been shot after ramming his car into, I believe it is a man, I think we can safe to say, his car into people outside a synagogue on the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur, and his security guards believed to have been stabbed. This is the point at which police officers were deployed. But Keir Starmer is flying back from a summit in Denmark to chair an emergency Cobra meeting on the Manchester attacks, now obviously believed to be a terror attack with bomb disposal unit at the scene. More on that coming up, more with Willem Ingram. Big thank you to Mike Neville, former Metropolitan Police DCI. Thank you so much. This is Talk.
getting the same number of migrants, at least in the short term until the terror works. But fundamentally, it won't work unless they do it at such a scale that everybody knows they're being detained and deported. I mean, I just think the clearest and simplest thing to do is to ensure that everybody is removed, either back to their own country or back to France. By all means, let's have a deal with them, or to a safe third country, which is what Rwanda was for. And I'm not saying the Rwanda policy was perfect. I resigned from, I broke the whip because I didn't think it was strong enough.
The UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. 11:22 is the time. Just to get you up to date, that breaking news, what does appear to have been a terror attack on a synagogue in Greater Manchester, the Heaton Park Synagogue on the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar, that's Yom Kippur. 4 people injured, one security guard stabbed after a man rammed his car into people on the outside the synagogue. Firearms police have been deployed. The suspect is believed to have been shot. We're not known yet whether he's dead or alive. Now, the Prime Minister is flying back early from a summit in Denmark to chair an emergency COBRA meeting on the attack. It's not been confirmed as a terror attack, but that would certainly suggest that seems to be what the authorities are suspecting. It's believed that a bomb disposal unit is currently at the scene, as well as the paramedics and armed police, concerned that there is a bomb that needs to be dismantled. Keir Starmer has issued a statement saying he's appalled by the attack and his thoughts with the loved ones of those affected, and thanks the emergency services and all the first responders. Philip Ingram, there's no doubt at all that we have seen. I mean, again, we don't know the motives yet of the suspect. We have speculated on what would be considered to be most likely. The fact that COBRA meeting is happening suggests, a terror attack. What would be the motives for attacking a synagogue on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar? I mean, look, Islamist extremism would be the explanation for most people. But we've also had a whole raft of people who have been demonising not just Israel, Israelis and Jews here in Britain and abroad for the actions in Gaza in response to the October 7th attack. We're coming up to the anniversary coming up on Tuesday of that has demonised them, deified the pro-Palestine movement. There is every possibility that it could be related to that as well.
I think there's more than every possibility. I think there's a much stronger link to it, and therefore those politicians that have been stirring up a lot of the anti-Semitism, the anti-Jewish sentiment that there is in this country need to be ashamed of themselves, because they will have helped stimulate this. And we've seen it across Europe. Yesterday there was a bomb attack at the Oktoberfest in Germany. I've seen unconfirmed reports of stabbing in Dublin from a migrant against a jogger. You tend to find patterns of these happen in different countries, and you're getting all of that, pro-Palestinian, anti-Jewish, and linking the Jewish religion to anti-Israeli sentiment.
And of course they always say no, it's not anti-Semitic, but the rise in anti-Semitic attacks it comes. Also, by the way, we've got a peace plan on the table accepted by the leader of Israel, by Benjamin Netanyahu. Still waiting for a response though from the Hamas leaders. Still haven't had one. In fact, they're busy being shooting rockets.
But it'll all be Israel and America's fault whenever they don't accept it, and they're still going out and killing members of the Israeli Defense Forces and firing rockets into Israel and all the rest on a daily basis. So the politicians that are blindly coming out and just supporting it are behind a lot of the sentiment that will have led to some of the incidents that have happened in the past days, and they need to be ashamed of themselves.
I'm going to say low level. I don't think it is low level. The low level explosion of anti-Semitism in recent years. Kids being afraid to identifying as Jewish on the way to school, harassment of people on tubes, on buses. There's a video going around yesterday. No Jews on this tram. Things like that. Look, I mean, this is this is happening on a widespread basis now.
And a lot of this is being stimulated by hostile nation states. So the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps will be behind pushing a lot of the anti-Israeli and anti-Jewish sentiment, because they know that will be tying up political capital and dealing with things. Vladimir Putin in Russia will be going, hey, here's an easy way of taking some of the political capital away from what the West is focusing on by distracting them and other things. So is stirring it up. People say, oh no, there's no links like that. There are links like that. It's all linked together and pushing it. And therefore,
that's not a conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy theory. It is what they do, and they're very good. They're very good at it.
And also, it just shows sort of dissent and disagreement and conflict within Western society,
which is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants to do, because he then exploits that dissent even further, and it means that our security services aren't focusing on the threats that are coming from them. The Chinese love it as well. Our politicians are not focused on further support for Ukraine because they're being tied up with these sorts of domestic issues. Keir Starmer was in Denmark talking about EU support for Ukraine and for elsewhere. He's not doing that now. He's coming back here to chair a Cobra meeting.
And it's interesting,
for Vladimir Putin.
That in Denmark, in Copenhagen, we've had drones disrupting, having to close the airport. We've seen this happening. Drones sort of just interfering in airports and things. And again, it's believed to be, the Russians who are behind this.
The Russians behind it, and it's a growing threat. And it's all linked. And people who say, no, it's not, this is purely to do with the Palestinian people, just don't know what they're talking about. And this is why groups like Palestine Action get proscribed, because there is intelligence sitting behind it that says actually the people who are pulling the strings, the puppeteers, are these nation state organisations.
I was planning to talk a lot in this half hour about the people getting on boats to come here. What about Greta Thunberg and her little acolytes on that flotilla, the boats going to Gaza, they claim, who got boarded by the IDF, helped on with her jacket, no doubt given Yom Kippur and fasting, maybe not given a sandwich like she was last time. But there's argument that they've been taken hostage once again, seized by the Israeli forces. What do you make of that flotilla? It's run by Hamas. By the way, the people organising that flotilla are absolutely Hamas affiliated.
They're carrying out a legitimate protest. That's fine, but they're getting then to a point where they're going to put themselves at danger. They're going to put other security.
They were arguing, look, we're in international seas. The Israelis don't have the right to board our boats.
Well, I'd say they're protecting them from getting into a place where, when they land with their gaze against or gay support for Hamas,
queers for Palestine.
Yes. That's the phrase I was looking for. Queers for Palestine. Something bad may happen to them. Reality may come in.
Well, a lot of people saying they should have been allowed to just let them dock in Gaza. But of course, they say they're bringing aid. Actually, but there's barely any aid. They've thrown some of it overboard anyway.
There's no aid. In plastic bottles to float in.
But also, they've been offered every opportunity to take that. But you can have the aid. You can take the aid in if you want to take the aid in. And by the way, we're talking drop in the ocean, quite literally.
And if they had gone on shore and anything had happened to them, oh my goodness, the criticism that would have then come out saying, well, nobody protected them, and all this. You can't win one way or the other. And the Israelis have gone in, quietly arrested a number of people. There's still some boats that are continuing further forward, but I think the Israelis will come back and deal with those. It was ever going to happen.
Do you think, just finally, that the deal, the peace deal, the 20-point plan accepted by Donald Trump, put by Donald Trump, accepted by Netanyahu, and indeed most Middle Eastern nations, European, the nations as well. Do you think that Hamas will accept it?
No, Hamas don't want to accept it. Their leadership is still sitting there in their five-star. Well, those that remain in their five-star hotels. Isn't
Qatar putting pressure on them now? Qatar knows that they could be targeted.
Qatar is putting pressure on them, but again, those Hamas fighters on the ground know that they will have to disband completely and disappear, and they lose their little power base. They're little men with big rifles that have got power over the local communities. You take that rifle away from them, and those communities are going to turn on them.
OK, very interesting, Philip. Thank you very much indeed. Just a statement now from the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch. We've had that statement about this suspected terror attack in Manchester outside a synagogue in North Manchester at Heaton Park. The Prime Minister has said that he is appalled by the attack. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, horrified. Kemi Badenoch says it looks like an outrageous attack on the Jewish community on their holiest day. It's called it vile and disgusting. We'll bring you up to date on that. Lots of top guests coming up as well. This is Talk. Stay tuned. This is the Home of Common Sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 11:33 is the time. Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer, is also with me in the studio. Just to bring you up the breaking news, and this is a very fast-moving story. This is a terror attack, a suspected terror attack on a synagogue in North Manchester, the Heaton Park Synagogue. 4 people we now know have been injured. A security guard stabbed after a man drove his vehicle at people outside the synagogue. Bearing in mind, this is the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, this Yom Kippur, when many families would be at the synagogue. The man who's suspected of committing this attack has been shot by police. It's not known whether he is alive or dead, and Greater Manchester Police have not confirmed either way. We do know, though, that the Prime Minister is flying back from a summit in Copenhagen, where he has been at a meeting with other foreign leaders, and he's flying back to chair a Cobra meeting, which would suspect that the terror motive is very much being looked at. We've been told that he believed to have acted alone, this man. Now, a video is doing the rounds of a man being shot by the police, and cries that he may have a bomb on him. We know that the bomb disposal unit has been deployed, as well as armed police on the scene, and people have been advised that although the incident is now over, that the Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has said, there is no immediate danger anymore, but we understand the bomb disposal unit there, and it does appear from the pictures, from the videos that I've been able to see, which we haven't been able to verify. I need to stress it, we haven't been able to verify, but it does appear in these unconfirmed reports that this man has a rucksack, but also appears to have something attached to just his waistband, which obviously the concern is that these are some sort of explosive device. Philip Ingram, you've looked at the video, you've looked at it, appears to be genuine. Again, I think we need to always be very careful of the stuff that goes on social media now. But Philip Ingram, what do you make of what you can see?
You know, that was on that video. That was the police neutralising a threat. You know, they perceive a potential other threat and are calling in the experts to deal with that. That's why I think the bomb disposal team has been brought in.
We understand the army are now at the scene as well.
And they provide outside London. They provide the bomb disposal capability across the whole of the UK. The Army's explosive ordnance disposal units, and they're very good. Now the immediate threat will have been neutralised. The police will want to now make sure and confirm that the individual was operating alone, and if there is a bomb, it may just be the police they're over an abundance of caution, have stepped back and have got the experts in to deal with it. But they'll be looking at how the individual got motivated. If there are explosives, where did they come from? Are there any other people involved? What are the links to potential different groups and everything else? And it's quite clear that the seriousness of it has been escalated beyond the Home Secretary, whose area of responsibility this is to deal with, to the Prime Minister, which is why the Prime Minister is giving up a very important international meeting to come back and check over.
I mean, certainly looking close up to his pictures, I mean, this man, I think, was on the ground and was attempted to get up, and then he was shot, and that would have been over concern that he did have an explosive device. Certainly, the images that we have got, unconfirmed, I must stress, these are unconfirmed. It would appear that these are genuine images. It would appear that the suspect had what looks like a it looked like it was a rucksack, but he has a rucksack on, I think, but also something attached to his belt. Things hanging down which may or may not appear to be explosive devices.
The only way to properly neutralise an individual...
And he appears also to be holding weapons in his hand, knives in his hand.
The only way to properly neutralise someone that you suspect has got an explosive device on them is to kill them. And it's a headshot.
That is what you do.
That is what you have to do. You have to stop them from being able to push a potential button if you think they have got an explosive device on them.
That nanosecond you've got between...
Exactly.
And can we just say, whatever the circumstances here, thank you.
Yes.
To the men and the women who do that job, who get no thanks for it. We often never know their names, except when they're then brought into court under murder charges. At the split-second moment, making that decision to save lives by taking that decision to take someone else's life. And these are incredibly brave souls, and we need to thank them every single day for keeping us safe.
And it will never leave those officers that had to carry out that shooting. They're trained to do it, they've volunteered to do it, but to take another human being's life never ever leaves you, and that will affect that police officer for the rest of his or her life. And we should take our hats off to them for what they do.
We
to
know
keep
the
us
Prime
safe.
Minister's flying back. We know the Home Secretary, the Tory leader, the Prime Minister have all spoken out that they're basically how appalled they are at this terror attack, as it would appear to be on a synagogue in Greater Manchester. I have to say, the awful thing is, we've seen these attacks around the world, Western world, of these sort of attacks. The question is, how have we managed to come to this? Do you think some people are going to wake up now to the threat of anti-Semitism in this country, because it's absolutely terrifying? What we call often the low level, just harassing of people on buses or in the street. People, kids going to school and being told, look, don't wear your badge on your blazer that says you go to a Jewish school because you might be attacked. The fact that every synagogue in this country, my daughter's gone to school with a lot of Jewish girls, gone to their bat mitzvahs, the rite passage for girls. Every single time we've had to have security guards at the synagogue and at the at the events. I mean, this is an appalling state of affairs. It is not acceptable. It is not right, and it must not happen in this country.
You will still, if we go out in the street of London after this, you'll still see people with their Palestinian flags and their headscarves, and we will still have our politicians probably this afternoon and
telling lies
tomorrow,
about genocide,
telling lies about genocide and making statements that are pro-Hamas, even though they'll not say Hamas, stirring up more sentiment. Yep. They've got blood.
And then saying nothing to do with me, Gov.
They've got blood on their hands, and it's not just the victims that were stabbed. They've got the blood of the individual that was radicalised, because they have been part of the motivation for that individual to get radicalised.
But also every single person today, every single Jewish person today in this country who's a fellow British citizen, being scared for them and their families' lives. And shame on you. Shame on you for putting people in that position. Right, let's go to a guest to talk about, again, it's one of the things. We've imported a lot of this. Was it a good idea? No, I think the answer was some of us have been saying this for 20 odd years, but weren't listened to, just derided as racist and stupid and cynical. But, let's talk about the government's policies when it comes to dealing with people who come here and claim asylum, and that golden ticket. Apparently, once you get here, if you get asylum, you're here for 5 years. After that, you can claim indefinite leave to remain. And then bring your whole family over. Keir Starmer says he's going to end that. But is it too little too late? Hajab Singh Bagal is a UK immigration lawyer and joins us now. Hajab, thank you so much for joining us. Apologies for so late coming to you. I'm sure you understand with that horrific breaking news. But what do you make of what Starmer's announcing? I mean, it sounds to me like the sort of thing that if Nigel Farage announced it, he'd say it was racist and immoral. But if he announces it, he thinks it's good.
No, what it is, it's an attempt to get net migration down. Now, we know what net migration is. We've been hearing about it for the last 20 years from governments trying to get this figure down. And this will, in fact, delay people getting their ILR.
Indefinite leave to remain, yeah.
Indefinite leave to remain. They were due to get it in 5 years. It will now double to 10 years. And also, it will not allow them to call their families over. So it'll act as, with the government are hoping it will act as a deterrent, in the fact that if you do come here and get asylum, you won't be able to call your family over here for at least 10 years.
Oh, then you can.
Yeah,
can you clarify for us how many, when we're told that people can bring their family? Now, I can understand people are allowed to bring, their wife or their husband or their children, but how many other people in your family are you allowed to bring?
Well, that is literally it. Your wife and children.
Really?
Yep, children under 18. Yep.
Because we've seen an awful lot of cases where people who've been able to bring large amounts of their extended family.
No, well, that only used to happen to EU nationals before Brexit. So the EU nationals, and this once again is why the ILR was announced recently by Shabana Mahmood, because out of the 4.5 million people that are due to get their ILR over the years, 4 million are EU nationals with EU status. Non-EU nationals only make 439,000 of that, which isn't even 10% or even less.
But that still a heck of a lot of people. I hate to tell you, Hajab, we had the deal over people from Europe, but again, also maybe again there are other issues related to people coming from further afield, and whether or not that in terms of that. I mean, there's some very clear statistics from different countries on average and what people likely economic contribution to the country is going to be. Do you think that that this is going to make a real change? Is it a gimmick? Is it going to make any difference to the pull factors of people coming here? Because we're constantly told you can talk about smashing the gangs and all of that, but if people think, the streets are paved with gold, you can come here, you can work illegally, you get put in a hotel, everything's fine, you'll never have to leave, they're not going to be put off by anything.
Well, it won't stop the people smugglers. They don't care, because their job is to get you to Britain. They don't care what happens to you after what happens.
Yeah, but they can only get people on the boats if they think it's worth paying 1,500 quid.
Well, they market it as such. They market it as, if do you want asylum in the UK? Now, the whole thing is to make asylum less desirable. Now, if asylum seekers might think, well, hold on, I can get ILR in another European country in 5 years. Why do I want to go to UK now? So the whole thing relies on getting into the head of an asylum seeker and the gangs thinking, well, hold on, there's another country to which we can take you. However, is it going to stop? The proof will be in the pudding. We'll find out in the figures next year or in the next 6 months whether this is really going to make a difference or not. So far, everything they've done hasn't.
No, and that's the thing. But we're told that migrants in particular are seeing that they're getting more of a crackdown in Europe. It's harder to get in, harder to stay, not getting help. And so actually there's more of a draw here. What do you make of the army being put on standby to start building basically camps for migrants? As Philip Ingram's pointed out, he spent 9 months on a tour of duty, living in a tent, with a shower and toilet block. No real reason at all why we can't be putting people who they say they're desperate. Humane. If these conditions are humane enough for our own serving officers and serving military, they're good enough for asylum seekers who claim they're fleeing their countries in fear of their lives.
Well, once again, will it act as a deterrent? If the prospect of your child drowning in a channel has not put you off making a journey, then is sleeping in a tent going to put you off? And I think that's the question we need to answer. The government now, it looks as if they're saying, well, hold on, we might not be able to stop the small boats coming, but what we're going to do is ramp up the removals. And that has been ramped up. So there are a lot of people being removed, and we expect them numbers to go up once again. And they've dramatically increased since the last 5 odd years.
Yeah.
So last year, 35,000 people sent back. If they manage to
most of those were voluntary deportations. It's just nonsense.
Listen, but that happens when you realise you're not going to get your indefinite leave to remain. So if you've been here 15 years and realise, I've got to be here another 10 to get my indefinite leave to remain, you might just think, I will want to go back. The fact is they're not here. They're people who weren't supposed to be here. And even with the voluntary returns, under the Conservatives, you know this, and I know this, I spoke about it many times, they were down in the 10,000s. So if
they're all useless. I don't make a party political point.
The key is, if they can send back 60,000 a year, like they did in 2009, then 50,000 a year coming over might not matter. But really, it's down to the removals. If they can out-remove the number of people coming in, that would be the bigger deterrent.
That's the big issue, isn't it? And again, that's probably going to involve some changes in the laws. Now, we're told reform and Kemi Badenoch's on the way to a reforming Convention on Human Rights. Nigel Farage for Reform says he just scrapped the whole thing. Keir Starmer saying it's all about the interpretation of international law.
Well, the fact is, despite the ECHR being in since 1998 under the Human Rights Act, 1998, as self-explanatory when it came in, they were still sending back 60,000. How were they doing that? There were still lawyers about.
Because the interpretation has completely changed.
There were still judges about, there were still lawyers about, the ECHR was about, there were still stopping deportations, but they managed to do it. So something along the line has gone terribly wrong. And what's gone wrong is the system is wrong. The actual people who are working in the system, they're wrong. So that's what needs rejig.
All right, yeah.
The system is working, was working, but the people there to make sure...
I'm sorry, Harjap, the system ain't been working for a long time. I'm going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Times against Harjap Singh Bangal, UK immigration lawyer. Up next, we're going to keep you up to date, obviously, on what's going on in Manchester. The Prime Minister has said that we will do everything to keep the Jewish community safe. Sorry, Prime Minister. I don't think that's going to wash anymore, mate. It just isn't going to wash. We're going to be talking to the editor of the Daily Sceptic, Will Jones, about Michelle Mone and that PPE COVID contract, and yet more scandals involved in people just basically trying to make money out of the pandemic. That's up next. This is Talk.
their nose and vote for Labour. The Tories not even at the races, and then other minor left-wing parties, the Greens and the Lib Dems, all coalesce around Starmer's banner in a basically big attempt to stop Nigel Farage getting into Downing Street.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:51 is the time. Just breaking news for the Prime Minister said that additional police assets will be deployed at synagogues across the country after that suspected terror attack at a synagogue in Manchester. Speaking as he flew back to the UK from a summit in Denmark to chair an emergency COPA meeting, he says, "We will do everything to keep our Jewish community safe." I've got to be honest with you, Prime Minister, I don't think you have done enough to keep our Jewish community safe. I think when you happily allow these pro-Palestinian marches on the streets, and yeah, the last government did too. I think there was a point when they were supportive of the Palestinian people and people in Gaza. They're just pro-Hamas marches. A lot of the people who organise them are very, very closely linked with the Hamas terrorists who launched the attack on October the 7th and still hold hostages right now, starved and beaten and tortured in tunnels under Gaza City and elsewhere. When so little's done, when pro-Palestinian activists are able to freely basically set off fireworks and act with impunity on our streets, as they did in London only last night. If you look at my social feed, you'll see I've just retweeted some images of that. Not a police officer inside. When a Jewish man, Gideon Volta, is told off for walking along on one of these pro-Palestinian marches against the route of traffic and being told he has to leave because he's openly Jewish. When children who go to schools that are Jewish schools are told, don't wear your blazer. We don't want anyone to know you're Jewish. When every synagogue in this country has to have a guard outside, more than one guard outside because of the fear of attacks. When people are routinely being harassed in the street, on social media, in public, on public transport. Sorry, it's too late. It's too late, Prime Minister. And when you recognise a Palestinian state, the cause that has been used to justify so much of the, not anti-Zionism, not pro-Palestinian, not anti-Israel, but anti-Semitic views and opinions and attacks on our streets, you gave them succor. You basically said, carry on, we'll give you the reward. That's what you did. This is on you. This is on you, Prime Minister. So don't you bloody dare say we'll put police outside synagogues. You're one of the reasons why there need to be police outside synagogues. Don't you bloody dare saying you want to keep the Jewish community safe in this country when you're part of the reason of why they are not. Shame on you. Shame on you. Right, we're going to change the subject for a moment because we are going to be talking about there are other stories in the news today. I want to talk about Michelle Mone, Baroness Mone. She has been linked to this COVID contract scandal where £122 million contract for basically dodgy PPE assets. She was on a fast track, used that VIP lane during lockdown to get a deal for her husband's firm, which she also benefited from. So did her children in a trust to the tune of tens of millions of pounds. Well, big question marks about whether or not there will even be criminal charges in related to this. Let's talk about this with Will Jones. He's editor of the Daily Sceptic. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Sorry to use up so much time with. Just got to get that out of my system. Well, I mean, Michelle Mone, she's a character. People recognise her. She sells bras. She's a glamorous blonde, so she's very much in the news. But is she and her husband, are they by far the worst offenders when it comes to these basically dodgy contracts that were badly fulfilled, or in many other cases certainly fraudulently got?
They're among the worst, but the scale of the corruption and cronyism at the time of this COVID panic and hysteria was quite staggering. There was £48 billion of COVID contracts issued by the government, of which 15 billion, that's nearly 1 in 3, were by Transparency UK, an independent organisation, were estimated to be have 3 red flags of potential corruption. And in fact, as much as 1 in 10, £4 billion worth of these COVID contracts went to people with connections, political connections to the government of the day, and a similar number went via this VIP lane where you had to have a political connection.
And it was basically Tories talking to Tories. But this is the thing, isn't it? Because you can understand, apparently, look, God, we need to get hold of a load of this PPE. I mean, we know, American officials were literally bribing people at airports, don't deliver that to Britain or France, deliver it to America. I mean, there was a global battle for this stuff. But there's one thing saying, look, my mate actually runs a company that deals with this stuff. I'm going to put you in touch with them. Yeah, brilliant. But saying, not someone I know, or brackets, my husband, but I'm not going to tell you that, and I'll benefit from it too, has just set up a company this morning and wants to provide this stuff. That's completely different league. How on earth did government officials, whether it's ministers or public servants, just start literally writing cheques for millions and billions of pounds to people with no credibility, no background, and often didn't even bother providing anything?
The level of incompetence and corruption is quite staggering. £500 million of the contracts went to companies that were less than 100 days old. In other words, startups, companies that were probably started up just for this purpose, to take advantage of the connections that these people have. While people were suffering, and these people were profiteering, and they saw an opportunity. Never let a crisis, good crisis, go to waste. That's the saying. And these people clearly saw a crisis and a panic and decided to
make some money
out of
it. It is extraordinary. I'm sort of utterly appalled by the fact that people thought, how can I make money out of this? And look, there are people, they needed these. There were loans and they kept their companies afloat and people in business. And there were people who genuinely did provide, things that absolutely, the NHS and care home staff needed, but other people were just taking the mick. But I mean, how far is the government going in terms of tackling the level of incompetence, so that people delivering stuff that just was totally unusable, as in the case of this PPE stuff from this company which was involved with Michelle Mone, and how much are they actually pressing criminal charges against people who defrauded the taxpayer?
Well, we have to remember that a lot of this stuff was useless. The Michelle Mone example is particularly telling. It's a good example because the 25 million gowns that she provided, and we have to remember this was provided in August 2020, so this was after the panic and the wave. In August 2020, 25 million gowns, they were not fit for purpose. They all had to be written off. They tested them whether they were sterile. 103 out of 140 were found to contain contamination, although the Baroness consistently claimed that, and has consistently claimed, the company has consistently claimed that they were in fact sterile. They've continued to say untruths.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Do you think that we are going to have a lot more of these sort of cases coming to light?
There's so much more. We have to remember that it was all wasted. That we say that it was needed, but actually the government wrote off £15 billion worth of their COVID supplies of PPE. That there was more than they spent on PPE in the first place. A lot of this stuff was useless, and a lot of it wasn't needed or used. It was just written off. There was a lot of panic buying, a lot of corruption and cronyism, a lot of making use of contracts. And the problem is, can we really recover this money? The Baroness has been ordered to repay £122 million.
Just sell her yacht, couldn't she? We'll have to leave it there. Will Jones, editor of the Daily Sceptic, thank you so much. Just some breaking news, very sad news from Manchester, from that suspected terror attack on a synagogue. A member of the public has died as a result of their injuries, and also it's understood that another member of the public is also fighting for their life with their life-threatening injuries. The police have also confirmed that the suspect who was shot dead, and that has been confirmed, but certainly one member of the public dead and one fighting for their life as a result of the incident. 4 people we knew had been injured. So more on that absolutely horrific attack on the synagogue on Yom Kippur. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Well, it's not a good afternoon, that's certainly the case. But I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. I usually have an opener to talk to you about, but I think we're all just a bit spellbound, aren't we? Just about the fact that we've got this horrific suspected terror attack on a synagogue in Manchester. It's the Heaton Park Synagogue. We now know it's been confirmed by authorities that a member of the public has died. Another member of the public is fighting for their life. This is after a suspect basically drove his vehicle into people on the pavement outside the synagogue in North Manchester. This, of course, bearing in mind, is the day is Yom Kippur. It's the holiest day of the year in the Jewish calendar. Many families at the synagogue. A security guard, we understand, was stabbed. This is the point at which the firearms officers were deployed onto the scene. A video does actually exist. We are going to try and get it to you as soon as possible of the suspect being shot dead by the police. It has been confirmed by the police that the suspect was shot dead. Now, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has stated that the immediate threat is over. There is no immediate danger. People have been advised, obviously, to stay away from the area. And we know that the Army bomb disposal unit has been sent to the unit to the scene where some sort of suspected device believed to be attached to the suspect, who is dead in the street, having been shot dead by a police marksman. That it is believed that he may have some devices. Now, it is not confirmed whether they are authentic, viable devices or if they are fake devices, but we understand that according to the sources for the police in the Manchester Evening News reported that the man was shot because it was believed he did have a device or devices on his person. Now, the Prime Minister is right now flying back from Copenhagen. He's been attending an international summit in Denmark, and he is flying back to attend a COBRA meeting in London. Now, of course, COBRA meetings are called terrorist attacks and serious incidents, and the Prime Minister has sent his best wishes to the Jewish community. Said he's appalled by the attack. He said that they will be deploying extra security at synagogues around the country and that he will work to keep the Jewish community safe. Philip Ingram, I was speaking just before the news. Philip Ingram is a former senior military intelligence officer joining us throughout the show. That I have to say, really not good enough for Keir Starmer to be saying this. I know he himself is married to a Jewish woman. I get that, but the general view of many Jews in this country is that they are not being kept safe, and their concerns about security and their safety and their children's safety is not being taken seriously. The fact that every synagogue in this country has a security guard or more. Every community centre, it tells you everything you need to know. You don't have to have security guards outside churches. You don't have security guards outside temples or mosques. You have them outside synagogues, and there's a reason for that, because Jewish people are under attack, and this tells us very plainly.
Very much so. Whenever you get your Jewish man having to be moved on in the streets in London because the police say he looks openly Jewish, that shows that there's something wrong with society, and those individuals that are out flying the pro-Palestinian flags with their anti-Israeli sentiment, they translate that into anti-Semitic sentiment.
And people say these are different things. I've got plenty of friends and family members who have Jewish faith, who absolutely don't have any time with the Israeli policies in Gaza, but it's irrelevant. It's
completely irrelevant. Those that fly the flags, that believe that, have got some of the blood of today on their hands, because they're stirring up the hatred in society that individuals who are open to be groomed and radicalised and all the rest. And we don't know what's happened to the individual that was behind this, but speculating and linking to other similar instances, some form of self-radicalisation. A lot of what happens in that is picking up the sentiment of what's going on in society.
And
if you're doing that in society, you're at fault as well, folks.
And if you all carry on with these lies about genocide and you make a country a hate figure and the people who support that country hate figures, what do you think's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
What do you think's going to happen? happen. Now, let's go to our first guest. We're going to talk to Rupert Lowe, the leader of Restore Britain, an independent MP, in just a couple of moments. First up, let's talk to Chris Phillips. He's the former head of counter-terrorism security at the Home Office, and he's a former Metropolitan Police TCI as well. Chris Phillips, thank you for joining us. Just in terms of what we know so far, and I've just gone through some of the detail, what do you think we're looking at in terms of motive, and what do you think we're looking at in terms of the government and the police reaction to this crime?
Well, it's clear that the police called Operation Plato very quickly, which means they thought it was immediately a mobile terrorist attack. They dealt with the incident incredibly quickly, actually. Excuse me. They dealt with the incident incredibly quickly, just a few minutes from the start before they dealt with the situation. The simple fact is the police can't be everywhere at all times, and luckily the Jewish community have the Community Security Trust, which means Jewish synagogues and other premises have their own security teams effectively, and it appears that may have helped to prevent this from being a much worse attack.
Well, indeed. Again, you say luckily. No, it's unlucky that they feel they need to have that. This is extraordinary. But we see increasingly sort of attacks on Jews in this country. We've seen in America, we've seen often very different motivations, but attacks on Christian churches. Mormon church recently attacked. Increasingly we see, and we've seen in Africa, certainly attacks on churches and places of worship has been very common, or we certainly see it in the Middle East. In terms of motivation, look, we were discussing this earlier with another former Met police officer. You know, the reality is that, you know, the first thing we are going to jump to with a terror, an attack on a synagogue, counter-terrorism units there, a suspected bomb, Cobra being called, is that this is based, this is based on some sort of Islamic political ideology, Islamist fascism. Is that what you would go to?
Yeah, it is, and you don't need to be a rocket scientist to put the bits of the jigsaw puzzle together to get to that point. But you do make a very good point there. It's not just synagogues that are being attacked across the world. In France, churches, cathedrals, priests have been attacked. Religious sites generally seem to be the focus of this terrorist group, and whether it's churches in Sri Lanka or France or synagogues right across the world, we've got to deal with this Islamic extreme view of the world that sees death as being the way to go.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, again, it's unconfirmed. We do not know the motivation of the suspect. We don't have his identity. Of course, the police probably already do. Now, the police have stated, that this man was shot dead because, well, they haven't stated. Their sources have told people, reporters in Manchester, that the man was shot dead because it was believed he had a device or devices on his person. It's not being confirmed whether they were authentic or viable devices. The Army bomb disposal units have been drafted in to ascertain that and obviously make any devices that do exist as safe. But we've told you this is a lone attacker. We may not know that for sure yet. And of course, to a certain extent, is anyone a lone attacker anymore? Because people, we know, are often being radicalised by what's on the internet. And you can even just see, the stuff, I get in my feed. I'm not looking on the dark web. I'm looking on the dark recesses of hate. And I'm on X, and the stuff gets, stuff I get sent and stuff I see gets sent to people just routinely. Some of the most blatant, obvious anti-Semitism, not anti-Israel, not pro-Palestine, anti-Semitism, the messages, the memes, and we see it on the streets of London every fortnight, every Saturday, every other Saturday, where people march along with flags and placards, which are so blatantly anti-Semitic. It's horrific to watch them in our streets and have the police stand by and do nothing.
Yeah, we've all got a job to do to protect these communities, in particular the Jewish community, who, for no fault of their own, feel threatened and are being threatened. And as a society, we need to protect them. I think the thing is, it's this extreme behaviour that we see that we need to get a handle on, and we shouldn't be putting up with it. And you're right to say, the video that I saw, the police officer actually dispatched him, I think, because he was still able to stand.
He was trying to stand up,
appeared to have something wrapped around his body. And listen, there's a piece of advice there. If you strap what looks to be a bomb to your body, then the police
You're going to get shot.
Quite legitimately going to kill you.
And I'm really very happy for them to do that. Thank God for the police who are willing to do that. Again, you describe this as a video that is doing the rounds on social media. Obviously, there are very strict rules about what we can and can't show television. We're just editing that now to make it something that we can actually show you. But it does show the man, police officers within a perimeter of a building, and we're armed officers, telling the man to sort of get down, and the man does sort of go to get up, and he is shot dead. There's quite a lot of shouts because concerned that he does have a device on him. Now, I mean, you've been a police officer in a counter-terrorism unit. I mean, would this be normal? This would be how this would play out?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you're 20, 30 feet away from someone that's got a device in it, in theory, if you look at the attack in Manchester, what they do is they pack the bombs with dockyard confetti, we call it, bits of new nuts and bolts and things.
Yeah,
and those
nails
things will if an explosion happens. So the police officers are quite within their rights to shoot him if they think that he's got a gun on him. A bomb on him.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. But look, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I very much appreciate that. Chris Phillips, former head of the National Counter-Terrorism Security Office at the Home Office. Just to let you know, also, we've had several party leaders making statements, including the Prime Minister, Home Secretary, the Tory leader, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage issued a statement saying, "I'm horrified by the attack at a synagogue in Manchester today, particularly on Yom Kippur, holiest day in the Jewish calendar. My thoughts and prayers are with the families of those affected and the Jewish community who will be suffering at this time, and my thanks go to the emergency services." We're going to get to some of your calls, and there's lots of you who want to have your say. First up, though, our guest who we were supposed to speak to already in this hour, very patiently waiting on the line, is Rupert Lowe. He's an independent MP and leader of Restore Britain and joins us now. Good afternoon to you, Rupert. I'm sure you want to give your thoughts on this horrific terror attack.
Well, it's obviously horrific and it's tragic. But it is becoming a hallmark of modern Britain, and it seems to suggest that the country is not at peace with itself. Now, I don't know the details, so I can't say anything about the detail. I know probably less than you, but it didn't used to happen. It seems to be happening increasingly. And it's all very well to listen to sort of crocodile tears from everybody after the event. What we really need to be doing is attacking the root causes of these problems and dealing with them at source.
Yeah,
but
and that is the thing, isn't it? Because we had this after the Mascherina attack, and there's little girls getting killed, and this sort of let's all light candles, bring communities together. But actually, that doesn't solve anything. We need to get to the underlying cause and the people who carry out these crimes. Can I just say, just breaking news: Greater Manchester Police have now confirmed that a second member of the public has died following this morning's incident. So we understand that there were 4 people injured, including a security guard who was stabbed. It's not clear whether the 2 people, members of the public who have died, were among those who were injured, whether those are also other injuries as well. It's a bit unclear at the current time. We also know that the suspect has been shot dead. But just want to get you up to date on that. But Rupert,
Julia, it's a tragedy. Quite frankly, quite what Keir Starmer can do flying back from Denmark, I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I mean, that seems to me to be a palpable waste of time. But he and all his cohorts seem to, almost make the most of all this vile stuff. And as I say, we really need to address the causes of it and deal with those. How
would you? What are the causes? Oh, sorry, I think you might have a speaker on there so you can hear me, but it's unfortunately playing out a little bit online. What are the causes and how do you address them?
Well, the causes are that the country is not being well led. It's led by weak people. It's led by people who are not, in my view, fit to be governing.
That's not cause. Give me something specific.
It is. No, I think weakness begets all this sort of weakness brings with it discord and disharmony. So we need some strong government. We need strong direction. We don't need digital IDs and all the other nonsense they're trying to lock us down with. But just look at the decision making when the state gets involved. It's terrible. And this morning I've been talking to my farm people. We got a letter from the government today, or yesterday actually, dated the 1st of October, telling us that a deadline on the 15th of September had been missed. Well, Number one, there never was a deadline. Number two, their letter is after the deadline has passed.
Yeah, can we stay a bit more specific? I'm so sorry, Rupert Lowe. I'm sorry. Of course, I'm being distracted by breaking news coming in all the time as well. I do apologise for that.
The state is the problem.
The state is the problem. Okay, but in terms of what we can do about the fact, look, I grew up, for instance, let's just say, I grew up in North London for some of the years of my teenagehood, and anti-Semitism wasn't something that people were talking about and worried about, and there weren't guards on synagogues or Jewish schools, and now there are. What has changed, and what can the state do to address the cause?
Well, look, as you quite rightly said, if you see mass marches taking place where people are chanting from the river to the sea, and you see all this hatred pouring out, as I say, Britain isn't at peace with itself. We used to respect minorities. We used to allow people to indulge in whatever religion or indeed whatever pastime they enjoyed doing, as long as it wasn't affecting other people. But now everybody seems to sit in judgment on everybody else. Everybody has a strong opinion. And in a way, I think it was summarized by the interviewer who asked a chanter at one of these pro-Palestine rallies what he meant by from the river to the sea.
Yeah, which river or which sea, and they never know.
He couldn't answer the question.
Indeed.
He said, you've got me there.
Well, I did listen. I'd originally invited you on the show because we wanted to talk about, Keir Starmer's announcement of his plan to tighten asylum laws. He says to end that golden ticket, people coming here, if they're asylum seekers, if you win asylum, you get to stay here 5 years, and after that you can apply for indefinite leave to remain, you can bring your family over, etc., etc. We've got various different announcements, and then, what the Labour Party trying to do. Do you think that failure to tackle illegal migration, do you think failure to wake up and obey the clear instructions of the British people since, 2010 onwards about legal migration levels, do you think that is part of the problem, is what led to, for instance, to today?
Well, I think my views on this. I'm consistently saying that we should be dealing with illegal immigration, and we should be dealing with people who are living here illegally, and we should be dealing with foreign criminals who are in our prisons and dealing with them by deporting them. I've been extremely clear on that. Illegal means illegal. And Restore Britain, I'm delighted to tell you that we are producing a very detailed paper, not only on what we see as the issue, but what we see as the solutions. That should hopefully be out in the very near future, over the next few days. And I'm extremely proud of our team. It'll be great reading for everybody. It doesn't just go into a sort of soundbite, Julia. This is a properly researched piece of work, which is actually going to come up with the causes and the solutions.
Okay. But we haven't seen it yet, so there's not much point talking about something we haven't seen yet.
You'll enjoy it. It's a big read.
Well, when we get it, we'll talk about it, Rupert. But here's the thing, though. When I was getting to in terms of immigration, we've got the issue of illegal immigration. I think people are insane to not think that illegal migrants shouldn't be deported from this country, frankly. But in terms of the legal migration, the mass migration and the cultural changes that we have seen in this country, one of my big concerns, and I wonder if you agree, and other people may agree, we don't know necessarily what the motives are, but I think we can make a reasonable guess at where we are in terms of this terror attack today, what the Cobra meeting being called, etc. That have we imported, sectarian violence and hatred that we just didn't have in this country in the past because of some of the people who've imported this country? I don't know whether the suspect who's shot dead is British or not British, but have we not imported to a certain extent a lot of attitudes which, frankly, were alien to our country for many years?
Well, this is the problem with illegal immigration, Julia, in particular.
I'm talking about legal immigration.
Well, legal immigration, obviously the Boris wave was a disaster, and I think we will come to regret that. But the problem we've got to address is the 9 million young people who aren't working, who are claiming benefits, who are signing themselves off with mental health. We should be addressing that. That is the issue that needs to be sorted out. And to use the fact that we don't have enough skilled staff here as a reason to bring in multiple legal migrants, which Boris has done. And by the way, I don't agree with Nigel Farage in saying that all these people should be repatriated. You can't, once you've legally accepted people, if they're making a contribution, if they're paying tax, and if they've become a properly integrated part of our community, you have to treat them with respect.
Well, I think that's what he said, isn't it? That those people, if they are, then they wouldn't be repatriated, would they?
Well, I
That's
think
the whole
he was
point.
talking about the
Reapplying.
complete abandonment of indefinite leave to remain.
No,
So,
I don't think that's what he said at all. No, you just you'd have to reapply after
That's how I saw it, Julia. But anyway, look, the legal migration, as you say, was not what the British people voted for. They've consistently said they don't want mass immigration. We need very targeted, very limited immigration, and those people who come here need to make a contribution to our, not only our skill base, but also to our financial well-being.
Okay, Rupert, I really appreciate you joining us. Rupert Lowe MP is independent MP, leader of Restore Britain. Apologies, we kind of went around the houses and that because obviously talking very much in the first place about this horrific terror attack in Manchester. We now know it's 2 members of the public have been killed. 3 people remain in serious condition as a result of that terror attack. A man ploughing his car into people outside a synagogue on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, and then confronting a security guard with it who got stabbed, and then armed police now have shot dead the suspect. Now, he's believed to be deceased, however, he's yet to be pronounced dead for safety reasons. People haven't been able to approach because suspicious items found in his person. A bomb disposal unit from the army is working at the scene with concerns that he does have explosive device, not yet known whether they are viable or fake. Philip Ingram, listening to all of that, a former senior military intelligence officer, still with me in the studio. Great to have you here today with all your expertise. 2 dead, 3 in a serious condition, a suspect believed to have been shot dead, but still concerns over whether or not, things can be made safe, whether there's a suspect explosive device.
Very much so, and we've got all the experts on the ground now who can secure the area and make sure that it is kept safe for the public. And the person that created that bubble of space for the firearms police to come in and deal with it and everything else was the security guard who got stabbed, and we don't know whether that's one of the individuals that has succumbed to injuries. And we often forget about the security guards that are there who are not armed. They're operating within very, very restricted environments, and they are on the front line. And a lot of this attack and hate that is coming through society, they are the ones that are in between the actions and the individuals that are being threatened. And the security guard may not have been Jewish, probably wasn't. The security guard could have been Muslim. We just don't know, and I hope that security guard is safe. But we need to respect the individuals that are putting themselves at risk. They're not the police. They're not anything else. They are. They're just trying to do a job. And the people in the country who are doing all these protests are putting those individuals at further risk.
Absolutely.
We need to grow up.
Absolutely. Well, the King has also issued a statement offering his condolences, and the Israeli embassy in London also has condemned this attack. We're going to take a quick break. I know lots of you on the line, so I want to have your say. Obviously, we're planning to be talking about other things and this horrific terror attack as it's emerged more and more detail. Just the fact that we've now got 2 people dead, 3 people in a very serious condition, and still police and bomb disposal units at the scene suspect explosive device. We'll keep you up to date on all of that, but if you want to have your say, give us a call, 0344 499 1000, in particular in relation to what the Prime Minister said about deploying more police at synagogues. Well, why should synagogues, why should a place of worship in Britain, need security guards and police? What does that tell you about what's happened to our country in recent years? What does that tell you? And who is to blame for that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I've got a bloody good idea myself, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. That's the number to call. This is Talk.
still getting the same number of migrants, at least in the short term until the deterrent works. But fundamentally, it won't work unless they do it at such a scale that everybody knows they're being detained and deported. I mean, I just think the clearest and simplest thing to do is to ensure that everybody is removed, either back to their own country or back to France. By all means, let's have a deal with them, or to a safe third country, which is what Rwanda was for. And I'm not saying the Rwanda policy was perfect. I resigned from. I broke the whip because I didn't think it was strong enough.
On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer, coming up to 12:29. Just to get you up to date, this horrific breaking news coming out of Manchester. We now know that 2 people have died. 3 people are still suffering with serious injuries as a result of a terror attack on a mosque. Sorry, what am I saying? On a synagogue in Manchester. Sorry, it's been a long morning with this. A statement from the King and Queen saying that they're deeply shocked and saddened to learn of the horrific attack in Manchester, especially on such a significant day for the Jewish community. Now we have got a video just before we take your calls coming in thick and fast on this. We've got a video to play, and it's got some very distressing images. So if you do want to look, if you are watching on YouTube and you want to look away, just it's 20 seconds long. I completely understand. We've blurred out too much detail because to play safe, but this is a video showing armed police officers confronting the individual suspected of this attack, who'd mowed his card into people and then stabbed a security guard. Got police shouting at the man, armed police inside a fence inside the grounds of the synagogue, it does look like, and shouting to a man. The man is then later lying on the ground, but when he moves, he is then shot dead. And obviously, it's the police can be told, telling onlookers to stay back as they confront the individual on the floor. It always amazes me, Philip Ingram, you've seen this video in its fullness, is how many onlookers will just go, oh, I think I'll just stand around while there are armed police. When there are armed police, move back, get the heck out of the way.
Yeah. You know, our police run towards a threat. The public should run away.
Yeah, it makes it easier for the police to act.
Makes it easier for the police and the other security services.
But bomb disposal unit from the army has been dispatched, and they are currently at the scene. It is believed, again, the reason why the man was shot dead, we understand, was because he appeared to have explosives on his belt. And certainly in the video, which we've seen without it being blurred, you can actually see, so I think it was like 3 white things hanging from his belt. There was
something there that was suspicious, and you have to make an assumption that there's a
someone has already committed criminal acts.
Device.
At that point, our police are absolute heroes going in and dealing with that. Let's go to the phone lines. Your reaction to this, 0344 499 1000 in particular, I think, to Keir Starmer saying he wants to make Jewish people feel safe. But Susie is in Hertfordshire. Afternoon to you, Susie.
Hi, Julia. How are you doing?
Well, probably better than many of the people in our Jewish community today who are fearful for their lives.
Yeah, I'm enraged. I'm amazed, I'm devastated. I'm part of that community.
Yeah.
And I was going to come on and talk about how, I went to a school that looked like a prison, and going to synagogue, you go through security. I was going to talk about that, but.
Well, I was saying earlier, again, what I've been seeing in my local area, there were the security guards, but people are correcting me, saying, no, we've always had to have security. But I think it's been much more formalised in recent years. I mean, I'm happy to be corrected where I'm wrong. It was something that I wasn't aware of, I didn't see, and my friends say, no, it's a much more important and significant part of life, having to have security now.
Julia, when I was in school and I left, I was in secondary school in the 90s. We had to do bomb drills.
I mean, again, that wasn't part of my schooling and my comp, was it? Here's the thing.
I feel safer in Israel than I do.
I've had a lot of people say that to me, and people I met in Israel who've moved from this country. What do you make of things like what Keir Starmer has to say? I mean, I'm sure he is. Genuinely, I don't think he's a bad person. He's just, of course, he's horrified by anyone being killed in such a scenario, particularly on an important, outside a place of worship on an important day in their religious calendar. You don't believe him, though?
No.
Why?
Do not believe him. Because he's letting the invaders come in and have more freedom than Jewish.
What do you mean, the invaders?
Well, the people that are coming in off the boats.
Well, we don't know who the suspect is in this case. We don't know that they were.
But they're coming in off the boats. They're being given hotels. They're not guarded.
True.
Our 3 and 4 year olds are guarded by security guards that at nursery.
Yeah.
You know, there are Jewish kids that can't get on public transport with their school uniform because something can happen to them. Something does happen to them.
Why do you think this has happened in this country? Look, it's happening in France. It's happening in numerous terror attacks we've seen in France as well. Why do you think it's happening now? What changed?
Nothing. That's the point. Nothing's changed. Mainstream media, the government, rhetoric, nothing's changed. They've been painting us as the bad guys for millennia. Nothing's changed.
I genuinely don't believe that the vast majority of people in politics in this country, the vast majority of people in this country are anti-Semitic. I really, really don't believe that. I don't hear people expressing that to me. I can see the hatred all over the internet now, and they couch it as anti-Israel or pro-Palestinian. But a lot of it, I mean, and there are people who are genuinely good people who will think that. But
I believe that.
But I do. I definitely know people I don't believe are anti-Semitic who genuinely are anti what's happening in Gaza. I think they're wrong, personally, but I don't think they have a bad bone in their body towards Jewish people. But there is still definitely people, I mean, in terms of like the marchers we see on the streets of London, who absolutely conflate those two things and turn their hatred on Jews.
But okay, I know you went to Israel and were moved by what was happening in Israel. The vast majority of people in government, out of government, in the media, they've got no idea how the Jewish community in this country has to live.
Yeah.
There are people taking down their mezuzah, which is like a prayer box that sits on doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're taking them off.
Which identifies a home as being a home to Jewish people. Yeah.
Yeah. They're taking
because they're
them
scared.
and putting them inside their houses because people are scared in their own houses.
You
mentioned France at the beginning of the war. A woman was beheaded in France, bringing home the groceries, and then the attacker phoned her mum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in no way belittling, in any way minimising what I think is going on. I'm going to have to leave it there. I've got to go to a break, but Susie, I appreciate that. I know I've got lots of the callers. I promise we're going to get to you by the end of the show. We're going to try and get more calls on air. We're going to take a quick break, but up next we are going to talk to the co-host of Trigonometry podcast, Konstantin Kisin. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:38 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and of course keeping up to date on that Manchester terror attack, which has left 2 people dead, 3 others seriously injured after a man drove his car into people outside a synagogue in North Manchester, and on a holy day of Yom Kippur for Jewish people, and then a security guard was stabbed, and that man has now been shot dead himself by police after they believed he was carrying suspected bombing devices. Philip Ingram is still with me, former senior military intelligence officer, joining me throughout the show. I think we all thought we were talking about other things today, but it is extraordinary reactions we've had. The whole of the political world, the King and the Queen expressing their horror and things. And again, I just think an awful lot of people, judging by the calls I can see on the board, and I promise we'll get to some, just feeling like it's just not enough. It's just not enough. We don't know the motives. We don't know for sure. Yeah. We don't know the identity. We don't know motives. There is a photograph of the man believed to be the suspect, and we've got the image of him being shot dead by the police. So there's quite a lot of information that's already out, but we don't know the we've made mistakes before in the media about the people's motives and things. But what do you make of where we are with the information we have right now?
Well, I think there's a lack of information right now. The police in Manchester need to recognise that if they don't give out detail, it is going to be filled in by other people who don't know. And as it gets filled in, then there's a grave danger that will stimulate an overreaction in other parts of society, as we saw in Southport and elsewhere. Yeah. So it's much better that information gets out more quickly. But I suspect, because Keir Starmer's now in an airplane flying back, he's turning around and saying, no, nothing goes out, I'll be the one that announces, because he's trying to make political points of this.
To be fair, as all Prime Ministers do.
As all Prime Ministers would do. But this is a time when actually you need to empower your operational commanders on the ground. And the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police is a very proactive and a very forward-leading Chief Constable. He's very, very good at this. Let him get on and deal with this and put the public statements out.
All right. Let's go to my next guest now, waiting patiently on the line. It's Costin Kissin. He's co-host of the absolutely brilliant Trigonometry podcast and joins us right now. Very, very good afternoon to you, Constantine.
Hi, Julia.
Hi, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I wish we were talking to you on a happier day. We could be focusing on the story I want to talk to you about, which is Greta Thunberg and what is going on with her flotilla, and of course, also what's happening in terms of Hamas and the peace deal proposed for Gaza by Donald Trump. Can I ask you though first, in relation to this, we don't know the motive, of course. We don't know the identity of the suspect. A photograph is a bald, bearded man. He appears to have something which police certainly suspected were possibly some sort of explosive device. We've got the bomb disposal squad involved in there as well. But that man has, we understand, been shot dead. But 2 other people have lost their lives, others fighting for their lives. Without knowing the exact motives, the identity, can we link in any way an attack on a synagogue on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar with what is going on in world affairs?
I don't think we know. I think we have to wait and see. And this is where I really hope the authorities, the police, the government do not repeat the mistakes they made last year when they sparked the riots by creating an information vacuum, by making misleading claims about the identity of the attacker, Axel Rudokubana in that case. Yeah. I really think it's very, very important that those lessons are learned and we get proper transparency. Like you keep saying, we don't know exactly. I suspect, though, there's going to be some very uncomfortable truths that come out of this incident, and the government needs to be transparent about them instead of attempting to cover them up.
Indeed. Well, look, let's talk about what we do know. And we do know that the flotilla that was supposedly going to bring aid, or not very much of it, I'm pretty sure, led by Greta Thunberg and others, that was supposed to be giving aid to people in Gaza, has been boarded by the Israeli forces. It's been claimed whether they were in international waters or in Israeli waters. That's been disputed. But Israeli forces had intercepted her Gaza-bound flotilla and taken her and others into custody. Was there ever a purpose of this flotilla? And can they truly claim, these people, that, goodness me, these are all influence and many others, there's Queers for Palestine, you name it, can they claim to actually be on a humanitarian mission, or was this always just sort of a bit of PR and propaganda?
Well, of course, there's a purpose. I call the flotilla HMS Virtue Signal. The point of this is to pretend that this is some sort of answer to the problem. And it's interesting that this is happening at exactly the moment that the answer to the problem has actually been presented by President Trump in the White House at a press conference only 2 days ago, in which there is a comprehensive peace plan. And the very people who have been screaming for the last 2 years to quote unquote stop the genocide are the ones that have either gone completely silent when that peace plan has been proposed, or in fact are encouraging Hamas to reject it. And it's important to understand what that peace plan involves. It's an immediate end to the war, is gradual Israeli withdrawal, the release of over 2,000 Palestinian detainees in exchange for just 20 Israeli hostages, delivery of aid, reopening of the Rafah crossing with Egypt, non-Israeli, non-Hamas administration of Gaza, an economic development package, non-displacement of Palestinians, no annexation, no occupation, and mediation between Israel and Palestine. In other words, if you have been calling for the end to the conflict for the last 2 years, and this has been put on the table, and you are not actively calling for Hamas to accept it, I think it's fair at this point to conclude that you were never, ever interested in actual peace in the first place.
Absolutely. And again, if you genuinely believe, and there's really no evidence for this, that there is a genocide going on in Gaza, if you genuinely believe there is mass starvation and that people, innocent civilians, are being deliberately bombarded, why would you not say, take the deal? Take the deal, save lives. And it is fascinating. And I noted on social media after this was first mooted how incredibly quiet the internet had become. All the people who've been going on and on about how we needed to have a ceasefire seemed remarkably unbothered about this prospect of a ceasefire, which, I'm sorry, I mean, I was stunned by what Netanyahu was willing to agree to, given what has happened to his country.
Well, it is an extraordinary genocide where the people who are in charge of the country to which it's allegedly happening and all of their supporters want to extend it for as long as possible and refuse to put an end to it by simply, at this point, handing over 20 people who they're still holding captive. It is amazing. And look, what it reveals, Julia, by the way, I think people shouldn't take away from this that either of us is refusing to acknowledge the terrible suffering of the Palestinian people.
People suffer during wars.
Well, quite. And what has been revealed by this is far from being some sort of genocide. What we are actually talking about is a terror state that started a war, which it's currently losing very badly, but nonetheless has a bunch of war goals, like any country at war would do, and therefore is engaged in an attempt to get as many of those goals fulfilled as possible. Now, if you want to say that that is what's happening, that's fair. I mean, look at Ukraine. Ukraine isn't just surrendering to Russia because Russia is making unreasonable demands. And if Hamas wants to continue the war, obviously I think that's wrong, and I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners think that's wrong, but that is up to them. But what they can't simultaneously do is claim that they're being genocided while prolonging the genocide despite a credible peace offer that's on the table. It's one or the other.
It's interesting, all the stories I've just been talking about, whether the Greta flotilla, this is Trump peace plan, say tick-tock on Hamas, although this 3 or 4 day deadline, we know Donald Trump's deadlines tend to move an awful lot. Perhaps we'll given a shorter deadline, but there does seem to be some disputes between leaders on the ground in Gaza and those living in their multi-billion pound lifestyle apartments in Qatar. But that also tying in with whatever the motive, certainly an anti-Semitic attack. An attack on a synagogue is going to be an anti-Semitic attack. I don't think they just did. But this man didn't just like the architecture of the synagogue, did he? I think we can safely say. But tying those all together, when Israel is held to a higher standard than any other country in the world in terms of its ability to defend its nation, its own people, and to attack, a defensive attack back on those who've attacked them on October the 7th. We're coming up to that second anniversary in a matter of days. When a higher standard is, as in, you can't kill a single civilian, and you can't target terrorists, even though they have put, bombs and weaponry and terror cells in hospitals and homes and schools and the like. When they are held to a far higher standard than any other country in the world, and the virtue signalers get on their flotillas and wave their flags, is that in itself anti-Semitism? And does that in itself feed into the anti-Semitism that we are seeing clearly played out, not just on the streets of Manchester today, but in our universities, on the streets of London every other Saturday, on the streets of France, of Germany, of the Netherlands, of Sweden, of America and American campuses as well. Does this not all feed in? And where people say anti-Zionism or pro-Palestinianism has got nothing to do with anti-Semitism, that actually it does all tie in together?
I don't know that I would say that exactly, Julia. My view is perhaps a little more nuanced than that. I think that in my experience, I've attended pro-Palestine protests and filmed them for our YouTube channel and talked to people there. And look, of course, at the hard edges of the anti-Israel campaigning, there are obvious anti-Semites and obvious people who just hate Jews. They don't really care about Israel. This is their excuse to hate Jews. But I also think, and I think this ought to be acknowledged, and this is interesting actually, of course, in the wake of the terrible political assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk wrote a very interesting letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu in which he talked about the fact that what Israel has been very bad at is communicating what is happening and why it's happening to the rest of the world. And I think one of the things that has been allowed to occur, there has been, as we talked earlier about the information vacuum that I think certainly contributed to the riots last year, and that is very important for the government to avoid in relation to this terrorist attack in Manchester. But there's also been an information vacuum from Israel. And the result is that well-meaning, not particularly knowledgeable or educated people who just see scenes of horror in a way that they've never been exposed to before, because this is really the first time you've had this highly urban combat happening in the age of the smartphone. They just go, well, I am seeing this horror on my phone and this must stop. And I don't think it's anti-Semitic that those people driven by their emotions then jump on a bandwagon into which they haven't done a lot of research. So I think we ought to distinguish between those two things.
I couldn't agree with you more. Very good
because
point.
we've got to win those people over to the argument, and the argument I think is going to be won over by the truth. The truth being, there is a peace offer on the table, and yet people are not seeming to be keen for Hamas to accept it. And that, I think, is very informative. And that maybe is actually part of the smart play from President Trump in this instance. He's offering, on the one hand...
Make it clear. Konstantin Kisin, I could talk to you for ages. I absolutely love your podcast, Trigonometry Podcast. He's the co-host. I really appreciate you joining us today. Covered a lot of ground there. A brief response to that from Philip Ingram.
Yeah, Konstantin made a very, very fair point there. But I think what we fail to see is that a number of our politicians who should be putting things into context. Israel's let itself down. It's lost the information war completely. And Benjamin Netanyahu, what's happening in the West Bank and everything else is just fueling those that are fighting against it. But our politicians, by coming out and supporting a Palestinian state at that time, ultimately that might be the way forward. There's no requirement, no
but also
Hamas.
spouting things about genocide, like David Lammy does every opportunity.
And everything else are part of the problem. What they should be doing is putting it into proper context and not just fueling the populism.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dee, for that. I'm going to take a quick break, then we are going to get to your calls. This is Talk the Home of Common Sense.
base was galvanised. They were happy. And his cabinet members doubled down on it. Didn't Shabana Mahmood say it was worse than racism? For God's sake, what's worse than racism? But when leaders of our country smear millions of ordinary people as racist or a danger to this country, it's no longer politics, Jeremy. It is reckless. Because some people might take that seriously. If you convince them that their neighbour is a threat or racist, some might do whatever it takes to silence them. And that, for me, incites division.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to not morning, good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:55 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's get to your calls coming in about this horrific terror attack in Manchester on a synagogue. Ashley's on the line in London. Ashley, what did you want to say?
Afternoon, Julia.
Afternoon.
My kids and my wife are at synagogue at the moment, and you just sit there and you say to yourself, what's happened to this world? I'm 53 years old. We're brought up through our lives about what happened to us in the past.
Yeah.
And our feeling, there's always something there, but this at the moment is unbelievable. That someone can look at something in the Middle East and think Jews that live in, where I do in Redbridge, are responsible for X, Y, and Z, and we're going to go after them and kill them.
Well, look, we don't know the motive of the suspect. We don't know their identity. We've got a photograph purporting to be the suspect, but we don't know. We have to be clear about that because we don't want to be, talking about unconfirmed reports.
It's not that. You see, for me, it's the country has completely lost its way in regards to rules and how they implement policy, and it's a free-for-all, this country. So everyone jumps on the bandwagon who shouts the loudest, who screams the hardest, but actually they don't necessarily believe it. And that's what's happening. And we, they're in synagogue. They've got people now, 7 people outside guarding the synagogue, right? Some people, peaceful people. I mean, us Jews here, I'm not being funny, but Julia, but we hope that we bring something to the community, have done. I'm 5th generation. I'm proud of being British, but I sit here and say to myself that actually maybe Israel is a safer place. It's mad.
I know. I'd be amazed how many people have said that to me in Israel as well. Actually, thank you for your call. Look, I hope everyone stays safe. Thank you for that. Zach is on the line in Leeds. Zach, what did you want to say?
Hi, Julia. First of all, this is a terrible attack. I just wanted to say, with regard to the statements from politicians saying that they're shocked by these attacks, can they really say they're shocked when they've just rewarded Hamas with the recognition of a state? So how can you say you're shocked?
Do you, I mean, again, we don't know the motive yet. I have to say that. I've got to be responsible and say that. But do you think that this is all tied up with sort of international affairs?
I mean, of course, we don't know the motive, but, it's not difficult to put 2 and 2 together. And also people with other causes, not just the Israel-Palestine cause, but all causes across the world now know that Britain's a soft touch. And if the terrorists are violent enough and if they can drag this on long enough and not make any kind of concessions or any kind of movements towards peace, we've rewarded terrorism in one instance. So what's to stop terrorists with other causes?
Oh, that's such a valid point. And again, that was with the Palestinian state recognition. That's the thing. You literally said, so if you take hostages, commit a horrible terror attack, you may well get your life's aim. Zach, thank you for that. Very fair point. Philip Ingram, listening to that, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And this is where the government and the local police need to get information out into the public domain as quickly as possible to stop an overreaction by others who are being stimulated to carry out terror attacks.
I'm telling you, by this evening, it's all going to be about community cohesion or how we need to bring communities together. That's going to be the nonsense that they're going to be obsessed with, as opposed to making sure that people are safe. I'm going to be screaming at the TV later. I know I am. Philip Ingram, thank you so much for being here. It's been really useful to have your expertise, as always, on these issues. Joined now by Ian Collins watching this, and obviously, no doubt, a lot more is going to emerge over the day.
We'll cross, obviously, over to Manchester to get the latest, but of course the news is already incredibly grim, and as you rightly say, speculation is a difficult area, but there are clearly some. Yeah, well,
we don't want to misinform people,
indeed,
but nevertheless, people are going to once Cobra's been called and the Prime Minister flies back, we're obviously going to think of motives.
There's been a horrendous attack, and there's no denying that. So we're across all of that.
And it is interesting, the number of people, and we had a lot of people on the switchboard. I'm sorry you didn't